GSM D1063 FDDMD
Tribune.
can't stop this PNUGEHA main FRD Barbie 134D Kings 17D Giselle D Rocket 429 Elmo Moving Dining 1 HEYPAULB Squared Link Dance B Squared Dance Wusco Uni D Wusco Drag Floret 49 Move with Paleo Dance Tag Flatulence Scolio 2D Arch 2D Chains 62 Disco Deck RBPIMLD Chef Bo 15D Ashley 8D Lover 2D NI 1 Dance Amazon 204D.
Tribune.
think it's a computer. Yeah, it's good shape, too. It's 5, 6 feet high, I'm guessing 9 feet long. Look at the extraordinary... What'd you do?
He touched it. Dr. Grant's not mission compatible.
Well, they got it in for me. Look at the half-moon-shaped bones on the wrists. No wonder these guys learn how to fly. No, seriously. All right. Well, maybe dinosaurs have more in common with present-day birds than they do with reptiles.
That doesn't look very scary. More like a 6-foot turkey.
Turkey,
Turkey.
6-foot turkey. Turkey, 6-foot turkey. Okay. Try to imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period. Try to imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period. Imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period. You get your first look at this 6-foot turkey as you enter a clearing.
Well, hello, everybody. And holy cow, Claire Burr, thank you for that raid. I really appreciate that, Claire. Holy cow. Welcome to Paleontologizing, everybody. It is wonderful to have you all here. And thank you for joining us. Happy Tuesday to you. And it is now my second stream here in the new office. And why is this not... Oh, that's why. Hang on a minute. Kind of readjusting to the new space. Let's get rid of these programs to free up some memory here. That. And this. There we go. And let's turn on our closed captioner as well, because I believe it is not on yet. There we go. Testing, testing. Closed captions. Excellent. Let's run it through its paces here. Let's talk about some of the dinosaurs we're going to be talking about today, like Gorgosaurus, for instance. Gorgosaurus. There we go, not too shabby. What about Citypes? Oh, close enough. Caenignathus, maybe? Caenignathus? Oviraptorosaur? Oviraptor. Ah, okay, okay. Not too shabby. Anyway, everybody, welcome to Paleontologizing. As you can tell, I'm still kind of settling into the new space here. But, it's great to have you here. Welcome, welcome. For anybody who might be here for the very first time, my name is Danny Anduza. And I'm glad you could make it today. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist, so you probably know already that a paleontologist is a fossil scientist. A scientist who studies fossils, not a fossilized scientist. Anyway, I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. That means I study dinosaurs in particular. That's really kind of my realm of expertise. That's what I publish on in the scientific literature, and what I dig up out in the field. Check out the YouTube page if you're new here, and see our broadcasts from this summer. Live dinosaur dig broadcasts in Wyoming and Utah this summer. It was a ton of fun. Dug up at least 3 new species of dinosaur. Check those out. It was a lot of fun. Looking forward to doing that again this next summer. But right now, there is snow all over the ground in Utah and Wyoming where I dig during the summer. So I'm back here in my office in the San Francisco Bay Area. And this is my second stream from the new office. I just moved this weekend. Check it out. Pretty excited about that. I love that this is modular now. We can have different stuff up every day. I am pretty excited about that. Yeah. Raven Hunter says, cool, thank you. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Sabretooth is in the place on the wall. Yeah, Phoenix Talion. We've got our Smilodon, which we were talking about yesterday. We were talking about Smilodon and how the canines on my Smilodon skull were completely wrong. This is a free model that I got online, and you gotta watch out for those sometimes. The teeth were completely wrong. They were like conical, so now I've got these actual Smilodon teeth that are nice and narrow, almost blade-like.
Hello. The creature bewildered
And Dyson Dinosaur, holy cow. Thank you, Dyson Dinosaur, for that raid. Holy cow, and how did your stream go? Welcome, welcome. Sorry, I don't mean to be holding up a mammal after a dinosaur stream like yours, Dyson Dinosaur, but welcome, welcome. This is our state fossil here in California. So in the beautiful sunny San Francisco Bay Area, we do appreciate our Smilodon. But anyway, I don't really work on mammals at all. I don't know if I've ever actually... Have I ever excavated? Of course I have. Mesozoic mammals I've excavated, but never any Cenozoic mammals. So yeah. Smilodon is far more famous than his cousin Frownodon, says Mayor Space. I'd be inclined to agree. Yeah. They're kind of like spider fangs. Really, are spider fangs also... Are they laterally compressed? They're very narrow from side to side? Like Smilodon canines? That is interesting. Anyway, I just reprinted these. I printed new canines for our Smilodon. Here, I should be holding it like this so you can actually see the lateral aspect of the skull. And I'll be repainting this. I'm going to be painting a bunch of different 3D models coming up. Because this new setup allows us to have new things on display every day. And that's exactly what you're going to see. So, pretty excited
had not died, I imagine
about that.
would still be small creatures like this living in the nooks
There we
and
go.
crannies of their world, and we wouldn't be here.
Gould is correct there. Yeah. If it hadn't been for that asteroid, I wouldn't be streaming right now. I can tell you that. Anyway, Dyson Dinosaur, I hope your stream was excellent. I hope you had a really, really good one. How did it go? You or any raiders who came in? Tell me how it went. Yeah. Oh, I have a paper in review about Miocene rhinoceros. Well. Very cool. I wonder if the ones at Ashfall fossil beds in Nebraska, USA, if those are I think they are from the Miocene, aren't they? Miocene or Oligocene? Let's look that up real quick. Here. I've been there. I should remember what age they are. And yep, they are from the Middle Miocene. Yeah. So I did a live stream from here in Nebraska, United States. That was pretty cool. Is this a European or North American rhinoceros there? Or is it African, I suppose? Where have rhinoceros occurred? Asia, Africa, North America, Europe. Do we have any South American fossil rhinos? I know we don't have any from Australia or from Antarctica. But yeah, we did a big rhino stream on World Rhino Day a while ago, and that was a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to doing that again. Let's see if we can find that. Rhino. World Rhino Day. There we go. Yeah. That was a ton of fun. Look at these remarkable animals. Yeah. Anyway. Pretty cool, Dyson Dinosaur. I appreciate your raid, and welcome. And Arcaros, forgot the R there. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. It's good to have you here. Holy cow. Yeah. Yeah. Mayor Space says, I don't suppose that arthropod mouth parts are homologous to tetrapod teeth. They're probably not, Mayor of Space. That's a really good question. I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah. And shame on me for working on mammals, says Dyson Dinosaur. You know, we all have moments of weakness, Dyson Dinosaur. Yeah. I'm sure at some point I will also have to publish on mammals. But, there, you know, it happens. And European rhinos, very cool, Dyson Dinosaur. Very, very cool. Holy cow. Let's see if we can find a quick video on the rhinos of Ashfall fossil beds. Let's take a look at that. These are some sculptures there in Nebraska. These are probably pretty similar to the rhinos that you're working on there. Oh, there's a big old tortoise. We used to have big old tortoises here in North America, too. What a cool world it was. Everyone publishes as a mammal, says Triceratops. I suppose that's true.
Rhinoceroses are so cool is that people don't know what fossils look like when they were alive. And this is an amazing fossil site, and these skeletons are incredible.
Yeah,
But
look at
these
those.
bronzes let you
Beautiful.
Experience what it would
I
like.
thought I recognized that voice. Holy cow. Look who it is again. Kirk Johnson. He kept popping up last week, and here he is again. And Diane Serpent, thank you for the hydrate.
In Nebraska 11.8 million years ago and see a big squat rhinoceros waddle past. And over there is a big tortoise. Those animals don't live in Nebraska anymore, but they did 11.8 million years ago.
Very cool. This was a pretty awesome time live streaming from here a couple years ago. It was pretty awesome.
It's an amazing thing here in Ashfall. You've got this incredibly sweet mix of great scientists, great park managers, great philanthropists, great artists, and we're really a long ways away from any big population center, but this is a national treasure here in the northeast corner of Nebraska.
Pretty awesome. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Here's a link to that video right there if you're curious. And were the rhinoceros that small for rhinos? Oh yeah, Golganek, absolutely. Yeah, those ones are... Who are they? Shoot, what are those rhinos there? Those ones are... species? I was gonna say Teleoceros, yeah. Teleoceros. It's kind of like if it's the corgi version of a rhinoceros. Although these were the rhinoceros at the time. Yeah. They're not the biggest critters around. There's one next to a person that's kind of hard to see, though. There we go. Like that. They're not huge animals. They're about the size of a horse if a horse were not as tall. It's hard to come up with a modern animal that you may have seen at a zoo. About the size of a tiger, maybe? They're about the size of a tiger. We'll put it that way. Yeah. Diane Serpent says, Danny, I have a question. Were there any cat-related dinosaurs? No. Diane, no. Let me show you why. It's because cats are mammals. So they're from a completely different branch of the tree of life than dinosaurs. So, let's go to Felidae, the cats. They're on the mammal branch of the tree of life. So completely different from dinosaurs. There you go. There's your cats. And they are a kind of feliform, cat-like carnivoran. They're part of carnivora, which are a group of mammals that have carnassial teeth. That's lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. And lots of other critters too, like seals and sea lions and walruses and martens and stoats and weasels and mongooses. There you go. So we kind of keep going out and out and out. We get to, what is this, Boroeutheria? There's bats too. Carnivorans, bats, hedgehogs, and more Laurasiatheria. Sorry, Laurasiatheria. And they're within Boroeutheria. There we go. Placental mammals, therian mammals, mammals. And then after that, you get to the link between mammals and dinosaurs. They're both amniotes. So, cross your fingers that this works. It's often very buggy. But, it's being buggy to... Oh. Okay. Let's try theropod dinosaurs. So, cats and humans are the same distance away from dinosaurs as each other, because we're both placental mammals like that. So, I know it says human here, but you could replace that with cat and it would be the same difference. So, dinosaurs, like Tyrannosaurus and cats, are about 68 millionth cousins, 83 million times removed. We last shared a common ancestor 325 million years ago. So there are no dinosaurs that are related to cats. But this gets into your other question, Diane. What's the oldest dinosaur known out there? It's this critter. Eoraptor is the oldest known dinosaur. It's not very big. The first dinosaurs were all small, and they ate meat. Yeah, little Eoraptor here. In fact, give me just a minute, and I'll go grab my Eoraptor skull. Hang on. There we go. Yeah. This is the skull of Eoraptor right here. My 3D print of an Eoraptor skull. There's the eye socket right there. There's the row of teeth. Teeth along there. There's the nostril there in the front. So, kind of a small critter. This dinosaur is about 235 million years old. It's a pretty cool critter. There would have been dinosaurs older than this, but this is one of the first ones. All of the first dinosaurs basically look like this, whether it's Eoraptor or... Staurikosaurus. There's another small two-legged meat-eating dinosaur. Yeah. Oh, these are so small. These images. There we go. But yeah, dinosaurs all start off small two-legged, and meat-eating. It's interesting stuff to think about, you know? Another one is Herrerasaurus, although Herrerasaurus may not actually be a true dinosaur. The thing is, we're going back so far in time that it's really difficult to tell who is a true dinosaur and who is not. Yeah. But yeah. Though all cats are mammals, the same cannot be said of mats and camels. That's true, Mayor Space. What? Yeah. And Triceratops is my kid just got a hamster. Where are they on the mammal tree of life? They're rodents, Triceratops. They are New World rodents, I believe. Let's jump from them to... So amniotes is where dinosaurs and other reptiles and mammals, where they link up. So there was a common ancestor of all amniotes, and it looked something like this. Hylonomus. It looked kind of like a lizardy little guy. This is not a lizard here. Despite looking like a lizard, it is not a lizard. Hylonomus is like a basal amniote, is it not? Oh, it's a reptile. Oh, hang on. Who am I thinking of then, if it's not this guy? Amniota. Graham. Oh, goodness. I was thinking of the oldest reptile. That's Hylonomus. But, oldest fossil amniote. Oh, goodness. Am I going to be able to find this properly? Timing and origin of basal amniote dichotomy during the Carboniferous period is highly debated. The oldest unequivocal amniote fossils are known from the Joggins Formation of Nova Scotia, Canada, and are generally regarded to be 313 to 316 million years in age. But what's the taxon name? Is it this critter? It's a parareptile. Yeah, anyway. The point is, there's a split here at the base of the amniote family tree. Amniotes are creatures that, basally, ancestrally, they lay hard-shelled eggs. So this is when creatures were first coming up onto land. These are vertebrate animals that are fully adapted to life on land. They're not laying jelly-like eggs like amphibians anymore. They are fully committed to life on dry land, and the hard eggshell allows them to do that. So amniotes, this is basically right where amniota comes off is where mammals and reptiles split. Mammals and reptiles both evolved from this basal amniote, and they go their separate ways. And so let's look at hamsters here. Hamsters are a kind of mammal. They are rodents, if I remember correctly. Yeah, hamsters, gerbils, true mice, rats, and more. They are part of mouse-like rodents. Yeah, which are part of Rodentia. Right? This is one of the most speciose groups of mammals. There are 2,096 species of rodents, give or take a few. It's pretty cool, you know? Yeah. And the common hamster is Mesocricetus auratus. Thank you, Lenina. The golden hamster right there. Yeah, they're cool critters. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. And, Casey Snowart wants to know, at what point do you call it a dinosaur and not a fish? That's a good question. Here, let's talk about that. This is a chart that I like to pull up anytime somebody asks me, what is a dinosaur and what isn't? Because it addresses that directly. Yeah. And 2,000 plus species of rodents? Yeah, yes indeed, Triceratops. That's pretty neat, right? Yeah. So dinosaurs begin right here. If you evolved from this ancestor, you are a dinosaur. No doubt about it. This is a critter like Eoraptor right here. This is the base of the dinosaur family tree. So in order to be a dinosaur, you have to have evolved from this ancestor. Dinosaurs are part of a larger group called Avametatarsalia, which also includes pterosaurs. Then this group right here is called Archosauria. This also includes our modern crocodiles. They evolved from an archosaur ancestor too. And then you go back further, you get to Archeliosauria, which includes the turtles and, according to this chart, also possibly plesiosaurs and nothosaurs. I don't know how well established that is. And then you go back to Sauria, you get to lizards, snakes, and mosasaurs here. And ichthyosaurs might be way over here within Diapsida. And then you get down to reptiles. Sauropsida are the reptiles. And so, here, let's jump from our hamster up to amniotes. Amniotes are creatures that are fully committed to life on land, at least ancestrally. Some of them went back into the water, like sea turtles, like whales. They're what we call secondarily aquatic. But basically, ancestrally, amniotes are land-living animals. And then we can go to sauropsids. Sauropsida. If you're to use like a kind of non-scientific word for this, this would be reptiles. Although you'll notice something here. It also includes our feathered friends over here, the boids. Birds are sauropsids. They are a kind of reptile. Birds evolved from dinosaurs, which evolved from an earlier reptile ancestor. So birds are reptiles. This probably is causing heads to explode in certain parts of our audience right now. People who did pay attention in biology class and remembered these things, remember the differences between reptiles and birds. Well, it turns out birds are actually a kind of reptile. Ask any ornithologist, ask any evolutionary biologist, they'll tell you the same thing. A Truckhorn, thank you for gifting Casey Snow Art there. I do really appreciate that.
136 gift subs in the channel.
Thank you, Casey Snow Art. Or thank you, a Truckhorn, for gifting Casey Snow Art, and thank you, Casey Snow Art, for watching. Yeah, appreciate your generosity there, Truckhorn. I really do. Yeah. And we are fish, says Phoenix Talion. It's true. Yeah. Sauropsids are a part of vertebrata. Wait, no. Hang on. There we go. Those vertebrates. Yep. Vertebrates. Basically, every animal in this little circle here is a fish. Not just the rays and whatever this fish is, and that moray eel and lamprey, but also caecilians, lemurs, poison dart frogs, buntings. We're all vertebrates. And ancestrally, all vertebrates are fish. If you've got a backbone, you are a fish. Yeah. Do we need a birds or reptiles emote? Oh, Neil, that's an interesting idea. Huh. Yeah. Oh, and you got a lifer Western Kingbird. Very cool. Neverwinter, that's awesome. Yeah. And Casey Snowart says, it's just the different things that we decide defines groups like fish, reptiles, birds, etc. Yeah, yeah. And hashtag Team Coordinate. There you go, Mayor Space. Yeah. What are politicians? Usually detestable, Great Sag. Yeah. They defy classification. Corrupt, says Merv. There you go. Bought and paid for. Anyway, here. Let's, Let's talk a little bit about classification. The classification system that you probably learned in school, you know, Linnaean classification, is, let's see, 5 classes of animals. There you go. Invertebrates, fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. This is woefully incomplete to the point where it's basically wrong, which is funny because, like, I also learned this in school. And I did really well with this in school, and a lot of popular media kind of, like, helps prop this up. This is a woefully incomplete way of looking at living things. It's, I guess you could say it's wrong, but it's... We'll talk about it. And Gary and Kellis, 7 minutes ago, you're not a new chatter, but Gary says, I forget if I redeemed this, but found the channel while showing Twitch to my parents and looking for new channels. It was during the pandemic, most likely. Gary and Kellis, thank you for introducing, well, telling us your backstory there, Gary. I appreciate that. Holy cow. I got started during the pandemic, or strictly speaking, still in the pandemic, but yeah. Yeah. When I was, you know already, Gary and Kellis, that's when I got started, was it in spring of 2020. And Darth Goof is requested a dinosaur deep dive for Ankylosaurus. Ooh. Speaking of the ancestry of dinosaurs, like we were earlier, let's talk about Ankylosaurus in a little bit. Darth Goof, thank you for that redeem there. That's good stuff. But this classification system that everybody probably learned here in school, you know, mammal, fish, reptile, bird, amphibian, it should really be, the way that I learned it was fish, amphibian, reptile, bird, mammal. No, it was fish, amphibian, reptile, mammal, bird. Birds were like this weird thing. Where did birds come from? Ooh. Anyway, this comes from an old school of thought, very heavily influenced by a German naturalist by the name of Carl von Linné. But this guy was so into Latin that he decided to Latinize his name. So instead of having people call him Carl von Linné, he wanted to be called a Latinized version of that, Carolus Linnaeus. Well, they've split the difference in this video. Carl Linnaeus. What a nerd, says
Carl
Chuck Horn.
Linnaeus was born in the southern Swedish province of Småland in 1707 and is considered to be one of the most influential scientists of his time.
Was he Swedish, not German? Apologies for that. He was Swedish. Phoenix, he was Swedish. Oh, this is intolerable. There we go. Oh boy. I need to figure out why that suddenly doesn't work. My soundboard. Anyway. Yeah, he was Swedish. Yeah. And Carl Linnaeus is what I most often see in English. In Scandinavian, it's Carl Linné. Charlie's Dragon? Yeah, yeah. Carl von Linné, I think, was... Or maybe the von was Germanic? I don't know. Shoot, let's look it up. Carolus Linnaeus. Carl Linnaeus. Interesting. Also known after ennoblement is Carl von Linné. Okay. was a Swedish biologist and physician who formalized biological nomenclature, the modern system of naming organisms. He's known as the father of modern taxonomy. Many of his writings were in Latin. His name is rendered in Latin as Carolus Linnaeus, and after his 1761 ennoblement, Carolus a Linnea. And that portrait of him, he looks like he knows something funny right there, and he's trying to keep a straight face. He's like, that's a great portrait. I like that a lot.
Refine a way to group life on Earth or to classify.
Yeah, let's go back a little bit.
Carl Linnaeus was born in the southern Swedish province of Småland in 1707 and is considered to be one of the most influential scientists of his time.
Yeah.
His life's work was to develop and refine a way to group life on Earth or to classify it. So straightforward was his system, it is still used by scientists and understood by people across the world today. His father, Nils Ingmarsson Linnaeus, was both an avid gardener and a Lutheran pastor, and Carl showed a deep love of plants and a fascination with their names from a very early age. While studying medicine at both the universities of Lund and the University of Uppsala in Sweden, he devoted a large amount of his time to the study of plants, and in 1732 he mounted a botanical expedition to Lapland. Over 5 months, he travelled some 3,000 miles, collecting biological specimens and taking notes. In 1734, he mounted another expedition to central Sweden.
He was an empiricist.
He's doing a kappa there.
That he hadn't seen with
Gary,
his
yeah.
eyes. He was very reluctant to take on trust something that somebody had written about.
In 1735, Linnaeus moved to the Netherlands, and it was in that same year that he published his most well-known work, the Systema
Naturae. Yes, yes, indeed.
In it, he outlined a new system for the naming.
Dr. Irrefutable says you can tell it was a long time ago because of the harpsichord music. Dr. Irrefutable. Yeah, you know, that's how it goes. It's like, you know, anytime I'm playing this music, you can tell that it's in the late 19th century or early 20th century, very early 20th century. It's these clues that allow us, you know, media presenters to give you a kind of shorthand, you know? It's just how that goes, you know? Anywho, it sets the mood. It does, Lenina. And, you know, it might be lazy. It might be a hack to do that, but, you know, whatever. This is a live broadcast. We'll do it live, you know?
Of all living things.
There are, I guess, two main things that Carl Linnaeus tends to be known for. The one is as far as his classification systems, which at the time were really rather revolutionary, particularly in the plant kingdom, rather less amongst the animals.
That's interesting. I didn't really realize that Carl Linnaeus was primarily a plant guy. Huh.
And the second thing is his introduction of a new naming system using a genus name and a species.
Plants rule, says Sparky Pugwash. I mean, they do. It's not. You're not wrong.
Now, of the two, it's the latter. It's the naming system that is his primary legacy.
This item is the first edition of Systema Natura, the one where
first edition
outlines his sexual system for classifying plants, basically by, you know, the number of stamens and the arrangement of the reproductive organs. So this is the first time it's appeared in print, and so that's why it's important. You can see it's very large, and I tend to explain it as being the 18th century version of an Excel spreadsheet, because you can see it's very table-like.
Wow.
By the time the 10th edition appeared in 1758, this had shrunk from this really large size to a much more sort of portable thing. but it had gone from only 11 pages.
Welcome, Hogan. It's good to have you here.
Returning
I'm glad
to
you're here
Sweden
too.
in 1738, he practiced medicine, specialising in the treatment of syphilis, and lectured in Stockholm before being awarded a professorship at Uppsala University in 1741. Throughout his life, Linnaeus showed an interest in nature and the systems which govern it. He wrote not just about classification, but also about ecology, how organisms interact with their environment. He explored food chains and even defined the concept of race, dividing humans into 4 groups: Americanus, Asiaticus, Africanus, and Europeanus. Forced to retire from teaching in 1774 by a stroke, Linnaeus suffered.
It was the 1700s, chat.
Died in 1778. Linnaeus was driven by a lust for all nature and the desire to understand and classify it. His legacy remains and is used by the many dedicated scientists today who are driven by that same desire.
And Hekime says they actually did some digs in his old garden here last year. Did they really? Interesting. Very interesting. That's super cool. Yeah. And Casey Snowart says, I guess understanding has to start low so you can build on it. Agreed. Yeah, that is true. For sure. Anyway, Carl von Linn did, in a way, kind of come up with these groups. And this idea, well, the Scala Naturae was a different thing. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. Yeah. Which kind of goes back into earlier times like Plato and Aristotle and... Oh boy, I don't even know if I want to get into that right now. That'll be something for another time, I think. But the important thing to understand is that we use kind of a different system nowadays. It's not based on vibes or based on like what critters look more similar to one another. It's based on what they actually evolved from. So let's maybe... I'm trying to find you a decent video about this that's nice and quick. Oh, I like this. Is this a lizard? No, it's not. It's a bird, which is not... Birds are dinosaurs, and dinosaurs are not lizards, but let's take a look at this from a SciShow. I feel like this'll maybe do us justice here. They usually do a pretty good job at SciShow. Oh boy, and if this video is 11 minutes, 30 seconds long, oh boy, we could spend an hour on this. We'll see what happens, okay? Start your timers, chat. Let's see. Yeah. And Casey Snowart says, don't let my question derail your plans. Oh no, Casey Snowart, this is what it's all about. If people are curious about a subject, believe me, if you're curious about this, it means that there are 50 other people in chat who are also curious about this. So do not apologize in the least. This is important stuff, you know? This is what sets a Twitch broadcast aside from, you know, like a YouTube broadcast or something like that. It's that live interactivity that it's really important here, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. And let me see if I can adjust these lights. Is this the way it's supposed to be? Yeah, it's at 100%. Okay, good. Yeah, I'll be making some changes to the whole lighting setup as we continue to do more streams here and everything too. But yeah, it's 10:59 p.m. Let's time it, says Sparky Pogosh. Holy cow, it's late there. Ash Rubber says, I'm here to learn. Awesome, Ash Rubber. And yeah, Jim, new place. Holy cow. Check it out. Yeah, I moved this weekend. I'm actually still kind of in the process of moving. I still have a lot of stuff at my old apartment, but yeah, new place. And it is my new office, Neverwinter. Absolutely. Here. Check it out. Yeah. I'm excited about this. I hope you are too. Good stuff. We're going to be talking about this critter here, Gorgosaurus, and here too, in a while. So stay tuned. But right now, we're going to talk about classification and how we classify living things as scientists. And what is that? A glass? Off-brand, says the truck one. Cheers. When I say I'm in the process of moving, this is what I'm talking about, where I somehow left my old measuring cup at the old apartment, and I'm in the process of, well, I'll grab it hopefully sometime this week. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue.
In school, you likely learned about the ranks in the Tree of Life with some kind of clever mnemonic, like Dear King Philip came over for great soup. This probably gave you the impression that those ranks were pretty important. Fixed, unchanging steps on the path from general to
Yeah.
One phylum or order must be treated the same as any other. Unfortunately, that's not true at all. That method for naming living things and sorting them into groups is called taxonomy, and it's a foundational part of studying life on Earth. We use these names and ranks to understand evolutionary relationships and preserve biodiversity. But it's also more complicated than it seems on the surface. Trying to shoehorn the messy, complicated web of interrelationships that is biology into neat boxes has resulted in a pretty messy tree of life. And straightening it out is going to take time and effort.
I mean, anybody who's watched this channel for a long time, you already understand this. And if you are more new here, then holy cow, am I glad you're here today. We're going to talk about some important stuff with this. This is excellent. My very earthly mother just saved us 9 pennies. R.I.P. pennies. Oh, those are the planets there, Steely Dan. Yeah. And Lenina says Three's a Crowd should have something arriving to the P.O. box on Friday. Very interesting, Lenina. Very interesting. Okay.
Time and effort we're going to need to put in because we might be running out of time to name organisms before they disappear forever. If you remember that King Philip thing, you might also remember that taxonomy got its start in the 1700s due to the work of a Swedish botanist named Linnaeus. He came up with a scheme.
And how did I forget he was a botanist? It's been such a long time since I've read about Linnaeus. Holy cow. But yeah, he was totally a botanist.
To name and categorize life on
Nice
Earth.
thinking, Wiki. Welcome.
Categories and binomial two-part names like Homo sapiens or Felis catus. That system, now updated.
And does anybody happen to know which organism has the Latin binomial Felis catus? Anybody have any ideas there? Felis catus? Tommy Ploticus says dog. Not quite. Yeah, no idea. I'm stumped, says Tony is my baby. Linnaeus says bats. Yeah. Well, let's look it up here real quick. Felis catus. It is the domestic cat. Which, couldn't they have gotten a better picture of a cat? Out of all of the cat pictures online, this is the one that they have. You know? Whatever, man. Maybe you can help them out, Danny, says Casey Snowart. I mean, they're going to take this from Wikipedia, so this probably, well, maybe they don't. Maybe this one is actually... No, it's not. I was going to say, you can sponsor one of these leaves on here. Your friend's name could go here. Donations help us continue our work. Nobody has bought the domestic cat one, which is nuts. Here, I'll give you a link if any of you wants to buy it to help support this wonderful, wonderful program here. The Tree of Life on OneZoom. It's open to you, you know? Not the best species name that belongs to gorilla, gorilla, gorilla. And there you go, Dr. Reputable, yeah. They should have went with Grumpy Cat. They could have. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue.
To reflect our understanding of
Keyboard Cat. I would like that, Gary and Kellis.
That system, now updated to reflect our understanding of evolution, forms the basis of what's
sorry to
called
hear that, Amelia
rank-based
Bedelia.
taxonomy.
Oh, no.
It runs from the very high-level domain down through kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species.
I think what she's going to say here, which is true, is that these are kind of arbitrary. Where, like, we as human beings like to put living things in neat little boxes like this. But these are a little bit wishy-washy. They're kind of like just because people wanted to do this. It's not like these ranks actually mean anything in biology,
with each describing more narrowly defined groups of related organisms. The names and naming process are regulated by international codes, like the ICZN or International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. And these groups are generally organized by describing characteristics shared within the group, which can be anything from having a cell wall to laying eggs with shells. In general, this works fairly well, but there are some weird...
And, hang on. Charlie's Dragon says... Boa constrictor, the only animal with a common name that is a scientific name, I think, says Charlie's Dragon. There are a few others, for sure. But if you want to read an interesting case of that, here we go. Yeah, there we go. I'll give you a link. Where's Bully for Brontosaurus here? Page 7. Wait, huh? No, this is not the full text. These are like reviews or something. Yeah. This is going to be really tricky to find. I have the book here. But it's going to be really hard to find online because this is an essay that Stephen Jay Gould wrote. The essay was called Bully for Brontosaurus, and later that became the title of a book, which is a collection of his essays for Natural History magazine. And in that, he talks about the name Boa constrictor, which that is a genus and species name. Page 79. Let's see if I can find this for you real quick. The topic rules for giving scientific names to organisms is easy enough to infer, but why should we be concerned with such legalistic arcana? Bear with me, he says. We shall detour around the coils of Boa constrictor, meet the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature head-on, and finally arrive at a hot issue now generating much passion and acrimony at the heart of our greatest contemporary fad. He's talking about the popularity of dinosaurs being a fad there, which... Take a hike, Gould. Or maybe R.I.P. Gould, because the current fad around the popularity of dinosaurs actually outlived Stephen Jay Gould. Yeah. You may deny all concern for rules of taxonomy. Our last domain of active Latin, now that Catholicism has embraced the vernacular. But millions of Americans are now het up about the proper name of Brontosaurus, the canonical dinosaur, and you can't grasp the name of the beast without engaging the beastly rules of naming. Oh boy, Gould. Typical Gould writing. He's a good writer, but he's like... It's almost a little annoying how pleased with himself he is about his good writing. Like, oh boy. Calm down, Gould. Anyway, if you want to read more about that, you should check out his essay, Bully for Brontosaurus, which you can find in your local library in the book, Bully for Brontosaurus. Yeah. Casey Snowart says, he seems like someone who is verbose as a flex. He definitely was. By all accounts, really good guy. A bunch of our alerts are Stephen Jay Gould, you know? Good guy, good head on his shoulders. He had some interesting ideas. Some less than interesting ideas, too. Some ideas that may have been taken from earlier researchers. But, anyway. Yeah. His essays were very popular among, a certain set of, like, you know, urban intelligentsia here in the U.S. He's called one of the great science communicators of the 20th century, and to a certain extent, that's probably true. Yeah. Anyway, Noel Sova, thank you for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. Yeah. And hang on, before we jump back into this, Anakin Gabriel's got a question. They say, speaking of books, sorry if this is going off topic. That's fine, I'm sure. I would like to ask for your help. I have a friend who is enthusiastic and curious about dinosaurs, and I would like to buy her a book for Christmas. She works as a veterinary doctor, so despite not knowing much about paleontology, she has a good foundation in biology and veterinary science. Very cool. I know she already has the book The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs. I've not actually read that one yet, by Bruce Soddy. Do you know what books I can consider as a gift for her? Thanks. Oh, Anakin Gabriel, that's a fantastic question. Let me put this one back. Let me look at my shelf here. Let's see. That's really useful information that she's already a veterinary doctor. So it's not like she has to be convinced that biology is important, or it's not like she needs a primer on what makes different organisms interesting, how they're related to each other, that kind of thing. Or maybe she, well, it depends. It gives me some ideas, though. Hang on. It kind of depends on how dinosaur-specific you want to be. For somebody who is already interested in dinosaurs to a certain extent, Anakin, this would be a top recommendation for me. Dinosaurs of the Flaming Cliffs by Michael Novacek. This is an older book. This was published in... let's see here. 1996. By Michael Novacek. But Michael Novacek is one of my favorite writers. The prose in this is excellent. Very, very engaging. This is, here. Really, really excellent book. I'd actually recommend this to anybody who's interested in dinosaurs and has not read it yet. It's superb. And it deals with these folks here. No, not a camel. Hang on.
World. They don't exactly look like scientists. Often they're mistaken for each other. But Mike Novacek leads the expedition.
That's the author.
With colleague Mark Norell.
Of this book.
They could be taken for surfers, but they're from the American Museum of Natural History. Scientists piecing together an ancient jigsaw puzzle of evolution and extinction.
The new home is great, Twerdy. I'm super happy here.
To me, it's so obviously important. I'm so emotionally bound up in this. I can't imagine why.
That's the author.
A knowledge of our history, of where.
That brief moment.
And Nell, holy cow.
The only species to comprehend and appreciate the great dinosaurs.
Nell, holy cow.
That's as long as a cachot's pregnancy can take.
That's a sperm whale, is it not? 18 months, holy cow. It takes a long time to brew up a baby sperm whale. Nell, thank you so much for the 18 months of support. I appreciate that more than you know. Thank you, thank you.
Where we come from isn't important to a human experience. Could you imagine what it would be like to live in the late 20th century and not know that extinction actually existed?
There's also just a sense of discovery. I mean, every bone that we find tells us something about how the world was 80 million years ago, which is
that's one of my alerts there.
Is pretty neat.
Yeah.
Just having a sense of history of what the planet was like and what the planet has gone through, I think just increases our appreciation for our own existence.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Here's a link to that video, and I'll give you a link to the book as well. You can find it on places like Thrift Books, or, better yet, you can find it at your local independent bookseller. I love independent booksellers. So I'd recommend you go there, but, Dinosaurs of the Flaming Cliffs. Holy cow, you can get this for as little as $5.69. Paperback, very good condition. Here's a link right there in the chat for you. So yeah, that's always a good recommendation. Novacek's other book, Time Traveler, I would also highly recommend to anybody who might be an aspiring paleontologist. That's an excellent one. I really, really love Novacek's writing style. It's very informative and engaging, entertaining, while being very unpretentious. It's very approachable. It's the sort of thing where you read it and you kind of don't realize how much you're learning as you're reading it. Great stuff. The other book I would recommend, especially if your friend Anakin is in a medical field, would be this book right here. This is kind of a hidden gem. The Bare Bones by Matthew F. Bonan, B-O-N-N-A-N. I've not seen this book get nearly enough attention, but it's really, really cool. Basically, it looks at, and I wish I had my overhead camera up and running so far, but I don't. It's a long book, but it deals with all kinds of different critters. Basically from some of the earliest bony fishes up until humans. And talks about the development of the skeleton. So your veterinarian friend might really, really appreciate this. She might love this, Anakin. The Bare Bones, an unconventional evolutionary history of the skeleton. I am in the process of reading this cover to cover, and it's great stuff. It's not necessarily the most entertaining, but holy cow, is it cool. And this could be like... I've actually heard of this book being used as a textbook in comparative vertebrate anatomy graduate level courses. It's good stuff. It is good stuff. Let me find it on Thrift Books. And holy cow, is it a little bit more pricey. but worth it, in my opinion. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. And Twerdy says, sounds great. Just wanted to pass by before going on to bed. Good night. Good night to you too, Twerdy. Thanks for being here. Yeah. And these sound interesting. Adding to my reading list? Yeah. Check out the Novacek books in particular, Casey Storm. Those are good. Really good. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. And that word makes books more expensive? It does, Archeros. Yeah, you were correct about that. Holy cow. Yeah. Fossils advent calendar. Oh, cool, Shigeti Gamer. Very, very cool. Pretty neat. Yeah. And Melissa Total, yes, indeed. I'm in a new office now. I have moved house. Yesterday was our first stream from the new place. Yeah, yeah. And you're good, Anakin Gabriel. I'm always happy to make recommendations. One of these days, I'm going to build a website, and I'll have a whole webpage on book recommendations there. So I can just refer you to that. But, anyway, let's get back to classification here, and let's talk about that a little bit, shall we? Yeah.
Works to doing things this way. Part of the problem arises from using a system and groups invented before Darwin and trying to paste in evolutionary relationships over top of them.
That is a big deal, actually. Shoot, when we're talking about classification systems, so much of this stuff was conceived before we understood that living things change over time. And this is really the crux of it right here. This is why that old Linnaean classification system doesn't really work, is because these things are not separate. Living things come from a common ancestor. And so a proper classification system needs to incorporate that in order for it to actually work. It's really the biggest thing.
One of the ways scientists have updated the tree of life to reflect evolution is to try to keep
thanks, Shigeti Gamer. I'll see you later.
Families monophyletic.
Yeah.
That means everything in the group is descended from a single common ancestor. And
there we go.
The group contains all the descendants of that ancestor.
Can anybody tell me what that term is that we have? A group that's descended from a single common ancestor, and the group contains all the descendants of that ancestor. What is that group called, chat? Do you remember? We talked about this last week, I believe, or was it the week before? It is monophyletic aphelis. Yes, yes. Yeah. And we've already got correct answers here. Excellent. Come on, soundboard. Yes, indeed. It is a clade. Yeah. Good job, Saranlin Haraz. Confused Echidna and Jim. And Aphelis, it is monophyletic. Yes, that term is a clade. That is a group of living things where it's the ancestor and everything that evolves from it. That is called a clade. So, mammals are a clade. That is a clade right there. Fish usually is not a clade, because when people talk about fish, they're talking about, you know, critters with fins that live in the water and that kind of thing. They're not talking about mammals or reptiles or birds, even though those all evolved from a fishy ancestor. So fish like that would not be a clade. You know? Yeah. It's lucky you didn't ask me the other word we learned. What, grade, Saranlin? Clade versus grade? Yeah. But yeah, that's a clade.
The advantage is that this system can easily and quickly tell you about evolutionary relationships. Like giant pandas are in the same family as bears, but not red pandas. So giant pandas are more closely related to a black bear than a red panda. Easy.
True.
But not all groups are monophyletic. Consider the class of vertebrates called reptilia. It includes animals like alligators, turtles, and snakes. Pretty much all of what we traditionally consider reptiles. In day-to-day...
Thank you, Varmint57 Varmint. Thank you so much for the 36 months of support. Holy cow. That is incredible, and I really appreciate it, Varmint. Holy moly. Thank you for supporting me for all the past 36 months. That's almost a whole year, isn't it? No. Earnestly, Varmint. Thank you for that. I really appreciate you keeping me here on the air. That's... Yeah. Those months keep coming and they don't stop coming. I appreciate your support during that time, Varmint. I really do. You're an all-star, Varmint. I appreciate you. Good stuff, Varmint. Good stuff.
It's usually not a problem to lump all of these critters together.
There you go,
They're all
Casey,
scaly,
yeah.
generally cold-blooded, and generally do similar things. But when we start to
Yeah.
think in terms of evolution, things get a little trickier.
Here we go.
Reptiles as a group are what's known as paraphyletic. In a paraphyletic
Yeah.
group, all members of that group descend from a common ancestor. But
That's a
the
lot of
group
words
doesn't
there.
contain all descendants from that common ancestor.
Please give us a visual demonstration of this.
Someone really important is missing when we talk about reptiles.
Birds! Yes! Yes, birds today are reptiles too. They evolved from a reptilian ancestor. And when most people say reptiles, when you're talking to a person on the bus and they say the word reptile, they're usually not referring to birds. Birds are usually excluded from that definition, even though birds evolved from a reptile ancestor. This is really important to understand, and I dearly wish this sort of thing were taught in schools, you know?
Birds.
Yeah.
Birds, which are descended from dinosaurs, are actually
Yep.
an offshoot of the reptile family tree. and a
Bingo!
relatively
Yes!
recent one. In fact, crocodiles, which we think of as reptiles, are more closely related to birds than they are to turtles, which
Oh, yeah.
we also think of as reptiles.
That's a really, really important point there. Holy cow. Yeah. So crocodiles are closer to birds than they are to critters like turtles. And I can show you. Let's jump to Archosaurs. Right here. Archosauria. Yes, indeed, Alexander Morrison. You know this quite well. Yeah. There we go. Birds and crocodilians form a clade, a group called Archosauria. Dinosaurs are also in here, but unfortunately this tree of life doesn't show extinct creatures. It only shows living ones, for the most part, with a few rare exceptions, like dodos. But, anyway, yeah, birds and crocodilians, Archosauria. So, a Nile crocodile is more closely related to a black-headed bunting than it is to a turtle, another reptile. You know? Yeah. So yeah. Interesting to think about, right?
And yet birds have
Here,
their own
let's go back a
thing
little
when
bit.
we talk about reptiles. Birds, which are descended from dinosaurs, are actually an offshoot of the reptile family tree.
They
and
are.
a relatively recent one. In fact, crocodiles, which we think of as reptiles, are more closely related to birds than they are to turtles, which we also think of as reptiles. And yet birds have their own class, aves. You can't have a class
Aves,
within a
yeah.
class, so birds can't be included under reptilia. This makes reptilia a paraphyletic group.
So that's, you know, we were talking about how this whole thing with the, did I get rid of that tab? There we go. Yeah, this whole thing, mammal, fish, reptile, bird, amphibian. Wrong. This is woefully incomplete. Birds are actually a kind of reptile. And then both of these together are a kind of fish. Amphibians are also a kind of fish, and so are mammals. So you should think of it more as like a Russian nesting doll kind of deal. And Shinken Godsa, how are you doing? Welcome to Paleontologizing. Holy cow.
Well, raiders are about to get flattened by dinosaur content.
Shinken, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome to Paleontologizing. How are you? How did your stream go? I want to hear all about it. Holy cow, Shinken. Your name reminds me of Shinkansen, like the bullet trains. I wonder if it has a similar etymology. But Steph's Klein Kramery says dinosaurs. Yes, indeed.
It belongs in a museum.
Wrong button. Anyway, welcome. My name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist, and I'm streaming to you from my office here. New place I just moved a couple days ago. Really excited about that. Yeah, as a dinosaur paleontologist, I study dinosaurs. I publish on dinosaurs in the scientific literature. I dig up dinosaurs during the summers. Check out the YouTube page to see some of our live streams of dinosaur digs this summer in Utah and Wyoming. It was a ton of fun, and the highest viewership I've ever had too, which is pretty awesome. My purpose here on Twitch is doing science outreach, and I am so glad that you're here. Steph, Shinkansen, Illyrian, how are you doing? And Shinkengatsa equals Bacon Kitty. Really? Interesting. I'm not a Japanese speaker myself, so thank you for teaching me something. Now, it seems like we might have some cool new people here in the chat.
Glue is cheap.
Do we have any desire here for a welcome video? To welcome some new people to the channel? Any desire? Give me a 1 in the chat if you'd like to see a welcome video to introduce you to this channel, to tell you why in the world a paleontologist would be here on twitch.tv in the first place. And we are getting some ones here. Excellent. Well, well, well. Without further ado then, we are going to call forth a good friend of ours. We call him Previously Recorded Danny. And he's going to tell us a little bit about who I am, what a paleontologist is doing here on Twitch in the first place, and all of that good stuff for his first appearance here in the new office. Luckily, he's found his way here too. Excellent. I am pleased to introduce Previously Recorded Danny. Go ahead and take it away. Well, thanks, present day Danny. Well, if you happen to be new around here, then welcome to Paleontologizing. You may well be wondering to yourself, well, if this is Twitch, then where are the video games? I'm gonna level with you here. I don't really do much in the way of video games. I'm a paleontologist. My name is Danny Anduza, and dinosaurs are my area of study. But how in the world does a paleontologist end up on Twitch? Well, you're about to find out. When I finished high school, I moved to Montana and immediately started work at the Museum of the Rockies, which at the time was an unparalleled powerhouse of paleobiology. That program was built by this guy.
Famed paleontologist Alan Grant.
Well, kind of.
You consulted on that movie.
I did consult on all those movies.
And they said that the guy Alan Grant was you.
Yes. Yeah, well, fortunately, he didn't get eaten.
Meet Jack Horner, the real-life Alan Grant. He's one of the most prominent and controversial paleontologists in the country, a dyslexic MacArthur Foundation genius who never finished college and who says he doesn't care why dinosaurs went extinct. To him, the important part is how they lived.
It was at Museum of the Rockies, under the auspices of Jack Horner, that I learned how to be a dinosaur paleontologist. And a huge part of that I learned by working with Jack's final graduate student, a guy by the name of Denver Fowler, who would later go on to become curator of the Badlands Dinosaur Museum. Working with Denver, I did summer after summer of fieldwork in the remote Badlands of Montana. Together, we dug up more dinosaurs than we knew what to do with, at fossil sites numbering in the hundreds. In 2012, I discovered a new species of ceratopsian dinosaur, hopefully soon to be published. The next year, we excavated the world's smallest and youngest Tyrannosaurus rex. Then, we dug up a brand new ankylosaur.
Montana's news leader.
5 paleontologists are excavating what looks to likely be a new species of armored dinosaur.
So we found its head, we found parts of its armor and plates, and so it should be a new species.
Not bad, right? Well, anyway, much like my fieldwork, my research also focuses on dinosaurs. For example, here's Triarchunkus, the last of the Alvarezsaurs, just published in July of 2020. One of my current projects focuses on Spinosaurids. I can't really talk too much about that until it's a little bit closer to publication, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, let's get back to how I ended up on Twitch. A couple years ago, things in Montana were declining rapidly, so I picked up and moved on to greener pastures. I'm so glad I did. And with that new perspective, I also realized that I have very little patience with the soul-crushing bureaucracy within academia. So for the time being anyway, I decided to take my career in a slightly different direction. I got hired for a job in early childhood education. As a teacher, I get to have a positive impact on kids' lives and help them find a passion for science. Then, when COVID-19 showed up, the school had to close. But that didn't stop the teaching or the learning. We just moved online. All right, friends. So, we're going to be looking at a book in a little bit, but I thought we'd start off with a song. At 3, 2, 1. Oh, give me a home where the hadrosaurs roamed, where triceratops bellowed and grazed, where erosion uncovers bones we seek to discover, for to strike the whole world amazed. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where sails on his hood a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. It was a pretty easy jump from teaching online to streaming on Twitch. I had my first broadcast in May, and I've been on here ever since. Now, I believe pretty strongly that any good scientist should also be a public servant. In my opinion, talking to everyday people about her science is one of the most important things that a researcher can do. I now have a golden opportunity to reach out directly to people where they are. This is what I'm all about, and now, thanks to Twitch, I get to share it with you. And I'm so happy to be able to do so. It's my intention to continue this mission of education by answering your questions, providing good science content, and working to grow this channel. And if you could help by following, or if you could afford it, by subscribing, I would be deeply grateful. So anyway, to my regular viewers, thank you again for sitting through this. To everybody who's new, welcome. I'm genuinely, earnestly glad that you're here. And I hope you stick around. We've got a remarkable little community here, and I'd be delighted if you join us. Anyway, let's go ahead and get back into it. So, present day Danny, back to you. Well, thank you very much, previously recorded Danny. And of course, thank you even more to our friend Shinken Godsa. For that raid, I really appreciate it. Welcome, welcome, and let me know if you've got any questions. I should also state that that video is about 3 years old at this point. I am in the process of hopefully updating some of those videos in the nearish future, so stay tuned. I'm no longer teaching full-time, I'm now streaming full-time. It's a dream come true. Doing fieldwork during the summers, all that good stuff, so yeah. And just moved into a beautiful new place. Things are good. Things are real good. Before you joined us, Shinken, we were talking about this old classification system of different critters. One that you may have learned in school. Mammals, fish, reptiles, birds, and amphibians. This is incomplete. Truckhorn says those kids have families of their own by now. That was like 3 years ago. Anyway, yeah. Steely Dan says transitioning from teaching 5-year-olds to Twitch chat was probably not too tough. No, that was a lateral move there for sure, Steely Dan. You are correct. Yeah. Anyway, and Rousey, I've not published the Spinosaur paper yet. No, I've had some other publications. I've not published that one. Shoot. You'll know when I publish that. Anyway, yeah, this old classification system is very incomplete, and we're talking about why here, with a video to kind of use as a springboard for discussion here. Yeah.
Birds can't be included under reptilia.
Oh, here we go.
From that group descend from a common ancestor to reptiles. In day-to-day life, it's usually not a problem to lump all of these critters together.
Yeah, when we're talking about reptiles, where dinosaurs are reptiles, right? Those of you who just joined us, you're familiar with this idea, right? Well, as it turns out, yeah, sure, dinosaurs are reptiles, but so are their descendants too, like birds. Birds are reptiles.
Reptiles. In day-to-day life, it's usually not a problem to lump all of these critters together. They're all scaly, generally cold-blooded, and generally do similar things. But when we start to think in terms of evolution, things get a little trickier. Because
yeah, so when we actually start to think about the way things actually are, it turns out these neat little groups are a little bit messier than you may have learned in school. These are not discrete categories like this. Mammal, then a hardline fish, hardline reptile, hardline bird, hardline amphibian. It turns out that mammals, reptiles, birds, and amphibians are all actually a kind of fish. And that birds are a kind of reptile. Imagine that.
reptiles as a group are what's known as paraphyletic. In a paraphyletic group,
and Anandusha says they are all amphibians like mammals. No, mammals are not actually a kind of amphibian. Amphibians are a separate group. Amphibians, they all share a common ancestor, as I understand it. And reptiles and mammals did not evolve from amphibians. That is a common misperception. That's why we're talking about this. That you thought that Anandusha shows that you know a thing or two. But those are outdated ideas. That's why I'm here streaming in the first place. That's why I'm talking about this stuff, is that there are so many misperceptions about this. And a lot of this new information hasn't made its way to the public yet. That's why we're talking about this. Amniotes didn't really evolve from amphibians in the way that we're used to thinking of amphibians, you know? Newt to me, says Andit, then yeah. Yes!
all members of that group descend from a common ancestor, but the group doesn't contain all descendants from that common ancestor. Someone really important is missing when we talk about reptiles. Birds.
Birds,
which are
yes.
descended from dinosaurs, are actually an offshoot of the reptile family tree, and a relatively recent.
And Rousey says, what's an amniote? Well, shoot, let's talk about that for a minute. Amniotes are this group of critters. Here we go. Let's go out to them. Amniotes are basically reptiles and mammals. They are tetrapods that are not amphibians. So, oh boy. How to we can find another video real quick. Amniotes are critters that lay hard-shelled eggs ancestrally. Yeah. Here, take a look at this. We watched this video before. It's good stuff.
Would you believe that walruses, rattlesnakes, and parakeets all once lived in the same house? Let's go back about 350 million years.
House?
What? What in the world looks like a half-plucked turkey and walks like a pot-bellied bear?
But Afro Bandit Girl does.
Hey, I missed yesterday's stream, but real quick, how's the new place? Get anything interesting lately?
Holy cow, new place is great, Afro Bandit Girl. Holy moly, is it great? I really appreciate you asking. Yeah, things are real good after the move. I am excited to be in this new place. It's gonna be really, really good. Holy cow. Thank you for the 16 months of support, by the way. Holy moly, Afro Bandit Girl. I really appreciate that. And get anything interesting lately? You mean in the P.O. box? I've not checked so far this week, but I might have a chance to tomorrow, Afro Bandit Girl. Yeah. Claire Burr says, looks like polished granite plates on the wall now. These are not polished granite, no. I guarantee you these are not granite. But yeah, and do check, I will. Afro Bandit Girl, I will. Thank you, thank you. Thank you kindly. Tune in tomorrow. I'll probably have a chance to go to the P.O. box tomorrow morning. Yeah. And they look really good, Danny. Thank you, Claire Burr. Thank you very much. I'm working on... I should have more of these panels up tomorrow. I put these up this morning. There should be more soon. Yeah. They're more like cubicle walls stuck to regular walls. But they're metal. They're, you probably couldn't hear that knock, knock, knock. But yeah, and this is a cycad, Claire, not a fern, but a cycad here. Yes, indeed. I do have ferns too, but they're not up yet. Yeah, and we could hear? Good. I'm glad. Yeah, thank you, Dreamt. Welcome back, Dreamt. How are you? How are things? Yeah. Anyway, I'm really excited to be in this new space. Thank you, everybody, for making this possible. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for all of you all, so thank you. Holy cow. Right now, what we're talking about is classification. And what is an amniote? That was the question. Let's talk about it.
Look around. Steamy swamps and rainforests of horsetails and ferns cover the region. Amphibians are the dominant land vertebrates. They range in size from newts to crocodiles, and all require water to do their egg laying. If they don't go to the water, their shell-less, jelly-like eggs will dry out. Because of this hazard, they spend most of their time living in or near fresh water. That is, until a breakthrough in evolution changes everything. The amniotic egg. The amniotic egg is shelled, waterproof, and can be laid on dry land. It is produced by the amniotes, a new group of animals named after their revolutionary egg.
I kind of don't like the like weird cartoony critters that they have here. I would have gone in a different direction than this, but yeah.
Dinosaurs, but we bit off more than we could chew.
And holy cow, simultaneous raids.
And their 7 raiders should have taken a smaller bite.
Dreamt, holy moly. And Geo Jim, welcome to both of you. Welcome to Paleontologizing.
7 raiders want to know what it's like.
Thank you for the raid. Holy cow. How did both of your streams go? Dreamt, how was your stream? Geo Jim, how was your stream? Dreamt was doing some just chatting. Geo Jim was doing some science and technology. Excellent. And Ready Lux, how are you doing? You rock, says Ready Lux. I appreciate you. Welcome to Paleontologizing. Holy cow. My name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist, and I'm here on Twitch trying to do some good old-fashioned science outreach. So as a dinosaur paleontologist, I dig up dinosaurs, I study them, I publish on them in the scientific literature. Dinosaurs are what I do. And I'm here to share that with you. We're talking about the base of amniota right now. Amniote organisms, which first developed during the Devonian period, didn't they? Or is it the Carboniferous? An abrasive girl, thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome. It's good to have you here. Yeah. It's eggy related, so like amniotic fluid? Exactly, Rylesy, yeah. Yeah. Drum says it's unbelievable that traces of the dinosaurs still exist on Earth. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Not just traces, but really excellent fossil evidence in some cases. We'll be talking about that in a little bit. And Red Wagon, new place here. I had my first stream in this new place just yesterday, and I'm very excited about that. Yeah, got a new modular background here, and we'll be seeing new stuff every day here on Paleontologizing in the background. Pretty excited about that. Yeah. Good stuff. And yeah, oh yeah, Mayor Space, huge numbers of living dinosaurs too. This is true. Birds themselves are living dinosaurs. So yeah, and new office up. I know, right, GeoJim? Awesome. And simultaneous raids totally planned that. There you go, GeoJim, yeah. Yeah. How did your stream go, GeoJim? And how was yours, Dreamt? I want to hear about them both, if you don't mind sharing. I know you might be wiped after a long stream, so don't feel totally compelled.
Instead of traces, leftovers, pink mercy.
There you go, Dreamt. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. Anyway, Dreamt, thank you for the 100 bits, by the way. Excellent. It is pretty astonishing that we have...
If you're
Holy
feeling
cow.
cheated, try blaming the dinosaurs.
They've probably found lots of early amniotes since, but am I remembering West Lothiana correctly?
You are remembering, Eric. Yes, indeed. Yeah. You are. That is a very, very early amniote. We'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah. Golganek says, amniotic fluid, the egg in the womb, or take the ocean with you. There you go, Golganek. Yes. Yeah, we were talking about what makes an amniote an amniote. Let's get back into that real quick. Here we go.
Ground. Steep swamps and rainforests of horsetails and ferns cover the region. Amphibians are the dominant land vertebrates.
Oh,
they range in size.
Old stuff before and around the time plate tectonics was formalized. That's super cool, GeoJim. That's old stuff. Holy cow. It's from like the 80s, right? GeoJim, a little while ago when we were, I don't know if you were here for that, but on the birthday of Alfred Wegener, we talked about plate tectonics, and we talked about how long it took for that to be accepted.
Try blaming the dinosaurs.
We watched an old documentary from that time. It was pretty cool, GeoJim. Were you here for that? I wonder. You might have been. But, yeah, that was a huge revolution in geology. Good stuff. 1960s through the 1990s. Yes, indeed, GeoJim. Yeah. Good stuff. And old stuff from the 80s. Arms crossed, Lenina. That's the thing, Lenina, is science moves so fast. We have so many new discoveries all the time that, like, the 1980s were a long time ago. That was like an entirely different paradigm of geology back then, you know? Yeah, science moves incredibly quickly sometimes. You look at dinosaur illustrations from the early 2000s. Dinosaur books from the early 2000s. Shoot. Let me find you one real quick. Here we go. The National Geographic Book of Dinosaurs. This I wanted desperately as a Christmas present from my Nana. Nana, if you're watching, love you. Nana, thank you again for getting this for me. That was Christmas 2002. Because Nana wrote in the inside of the book here. But let me show you what Velociraptor looked like around 2002. because it's completely different from how we now know that critter looked. There we go. Deinonychus, Troodon, Velociraptor. It's a beautiful illustration of Velociraptor by Raul Martin here. This is now completely wrong. Completely incorrect. This is from just 21 years ago. Holy cow. Makes me feel old. But yeah. Velociraptor should now look like this. A fully feathered animal, because new fossil discoveries have shown that this animal had feathers all over its body. It turns out they had several more heads. No, that's not true, Mayorspace. They had feathers, though. And so, yeah, paleontology moves so fast. It's incredible how quickly discoveries are made sometimes, and how that can completely overturn our understanding of entire groups of living things and their evolutionary history. It's really, really cool to consider. It really is. So, cover your shame, Velociraptor. There you go, Copernicus cat. Yeah. Yes. So it's amazing how much that can change. Anyway, like we were talking about in this video, how our understanding of the classification of living things has changed with more information. But let's get through this video about amniotes real quick first.
From newts to crocodiles.
Yeah, here. Here we go.
Would you believe that walruses, rattlesnakes, and parakeets all once lived in the same house? Let's go back about 350 million years. Look around. Steamy swamps and rainforests of horsetails and ferns cover the region.
Yeah.
Amphibians are the dominant land vertebrates. They range in size from newts to crocodiles.
And these are really bad representation. The writing here is really good. I don't like the rendering of these critters. They look really cartoony, and they're just not great.
And all require water to do their egg laying.
Googly eyes. And there you go.
If they don't go to the water, their shell-less, jelly-like eggs will dry out. Because of this hazard, they spend most of their time living in or near fresh water. That is,
they also didn't drink out of bowling balls?
Until
whatever.
A breakthrough in evolution changes everything. The amniotic egg. The amniotic egg is shelled, waterproof, and can be laid on dry land. It is produced by the amniotes, a new group of animals named after their revolutionary egg. The first amniote is a tetrapod, a four-legged animal, resembling a small lizard. While some amphibians can walk around on land and bury their eggs in wet soil or highly humid areas, nothing before the amniotes has the ability to lay its eggs on completely dry land. Because of this evolved egg, the amniotes are the first animals with the ability to live a fully terrestrial life.
Yeah.
But despite their move in,
the
amniotes
something
have
out of
not
spore.
abandoned their
You're right,
pond-dwelling
Rousey.
upbringing.
Yeah.
In fact, the amniotic egg...
And Nerduino, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome. I'm a little bit embarrassed at how bad the animations are in this. We're describing the concept of amniotes right now. We're talking about this group of critters called amniotes. Amniotes, which this includes birds and mammals, and squamates like snakes and lizards, and crocodiles and turtles. These are all amniotes. So they are like... This is basically what people think of as reptiles and birds and mammals. Turns out birds are actually a kind of reptile. But what sets amniotes apart from other critters is their ability to lay eggs on land that have hard shells. And the first mammals did this. The first reptiles did this. That's kind of what links reptiles and mammals. They're both amniotes. The first mammals laid eggs, folks. I hope that's not too mind-blowing for you to hear.
Brings the pond with them by enclosing the aquatic environment.
Here we go.
Shell-less, jelly-like...
Oh, shoot.
Press
the wrong button. Here we go.
Are the first animals with the ability to live a fully terrestrial life.
And that's not true. They actually got this part wrong. Could anybody in the chat tell me what's wrong with that?
Its eggs on completely dry land. Because of this evolved egg.
And Miss Yvette, thank you for the 200
Danny,
bits.
maybe you can put Churstmas light on the gas pipe. Hope to see a tree too.
Miss Yvette, you stay tuned. Oh yeah, we've got plans. We've got plans, Miss Yvette. Yes. Yeah, I don't even have to. We already have people in chat who have gotten this right.
The amniotes are the first animals with the ability to live a fully terrestrial life.
That's incorrect. It was arthropods were the first animals to live a fully terrestrial life, and Jody Fish got that. Goodness, I don't know why. I moved to a new apartment, and now my soundboard only works when you squint at it for some reason. But Jody Fish is totally right about that. Yes. Arthropods. Arthropods, like these giant arthropods from the Carboniferous, these were the first fully terrestrial land animals. This is sloppy writing on the part of who did this, you know, TED Ed video. This is vertebrate chauvinism here. And I'll fully admit that as a vertebrate paleontologist, this is some straight up vertebrate chauvinism here, you know? Murph says, didn't some of the Eurypterids make it onto land? They did, but they weren't fully terrestrial. There were other terrestrial arthropods at the time. Yeah, and they actually became fully terrestrial before the tetrapods did, before vertebrate animals did. Critters like Arthropleura, like that giant millipede type critter that you see there. Right here, that's Arthropleura, right there. They became fully terrestrial before any vertebrate animals did. So they got that part wrong in the video.
But despite their move inland, the amniotes have not abandoned their pond-dwelling upbringing. In fact,
there you go,
the
Alex
amniotic
Vixen.
egg brings the pond with them by enclosing the aquatic environment within its shell. This is achieved by 4 main upgrades that are unique to amniotic eggs. Let's take a closer look. The first development is the most obvious, the egg's protective shell. It's tough but flexible and has a leathery surface still seen in some reptile eggs today. The shell protects the eggs from predators, bacteria, damage, and drying out. But unlike the walls of a fish tank, the shell of the amniotic egg is porous.
It has to
allowing
breathe.
oxygen to pass through so that the growing amniote inside doesn't suffocate. The next 2 developments are 2 separate membranes that work together like a pair of lungs. They bring oxygen into the embryo while removing carbon dioxide. The first is the chorion, which is the protective layer that oxygen passes through after entering the shell's tiny pores. You may recognize the chorion as the thin skin you peel away on a hard-boiled egg. Think of this waterproof membrane as the in and outdoors of the egg. It's the entrance for oxygen and exit for carbon dioxide.
Okay.
The membrane working with the chorion is the allantois. If the chorion is the doors, then the allantois is essentially the lobby of the building. It directs the oxygen and carbon dioxide while simultaneously storing unneeded waste from the embryo.
Okay,
The chorion
not the
and
best
allantois
analogy,
make sure
maybe.
the embryo has everything it needs and gets rid of anything it doesn't. The last and perhaps the most important development
amnion!
is the amnion, the membrane in which the egg is named. The amnion is also contained within the chorion and holds the fluid in which the embryo floats. Because it has left the watery world of the amphibians, the amnion is necessary for preventing the embryo
If you're feeling a
from
bit
drying out.
cheated, try blaming the dinosaurs.
Carbon dioxide is linear, not bent, but they did show the double bonds well.
Oh, shoot. I'm not a chemist myself, Eric, so that's an interesting... that's a little bit validating to hear that they didn't just get the biology a little bit wrong in this. They got some of the chemistry wrong, too. But yeah, thank you for the 100 bits, by the way, Eric. I appreciate that. Yeah.
It is the transportable pond that allows the amniote to lay the egg on dry land. Its fluid also protects the embryo from any collisions or rough landings, like a shock absorber on your bike or car. Together, the shell and these 4 membranes create a safe, watery environment for the embryo to grow and develop.
Yep.
The new amniote offspring will continue the process of vertebrate evolution as it explores new land away from the water. They will spend the next 1,000,000 years splitting into 2 distinct groups.
Yep. Synapsida and Sauropsida. Excellent. This is really, really good. So basically the split between reptiles and mammals happens right at the beginning of amniota there. Synapsids evolve into mammals. Sauropsids are reptiles, including birds and including dinosaurs.
The synapsids and sauropsids. Synapsida is the group of animals that contain mammals, while Sauropsida is the group that contains reptiles, birds, and dinosaurs.
Yep.
These 2 amniotic groups collectively contain the walruses, rattlesnakes, and parakeets we know today. Like a family reunion with relatives of every shape and size coming together from different corners of the earth, these animals can all call one place home, the amniotic egg.
Pretty good stuff. And the amniotic egg, you know, you might think, well, mammals don't lay eggs today, which is not true. Some mammals do lay eggs. Critters like platypus and echidna, they lay eggs, the monotremes mammals. But the egg also is still contained within placental mammals and all metatherian mammals, you know, marsupials as well. That amniotic egg, you might recognize a root word in there, amnio, like amniotic fluid. And that is because the amniotic egg is still kind of present in humans too, but it's just inside, you know, it's an internal thing. That egg is no longer laid, that egg is inside. It's just been adapted to give live birth. It's pretty cool how that works, right? That's all, folks. Steely Dan, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's an amniote. We had a question about that earlier. So yeah, let's finally finish this video on classification and why it's a little bit outdated. Anyway, yeah. And Anadusha says, so not sure here. That still sounds to me like amphibia as a paraphyletic group. As to amniotes as reptilia, paraphyletic group as to aves. No, amphibia is separate, I think, Anandusha. Yeah. Here, if we go back to our tree of life, amphibians are this group over here. So they branch earlier. It's amniotes do not evolve from amphibians. Amphibians are a separate branch. So I think amphibia is a monophyletic group, isn't it? Let's look that up. Amphibians. Yeah. Class amphibia. Oh, it is a paraphyletic group. Oh, you're kidding me. Oh, shoot. I was wrong. Oh, no. It encompasses all tetrapods. So tetrapods are a kind of amphibian? Oh, no. No. Ah. That means... Holy cow, that means that this system before is even more wrong than I realized. Reptiles... Well, birds are a kind of reptile, which are a kind of amphibian, which are a kind of fish. Mammals are a kind of amphibian, which are a kind of fish. Oh, boy. But Lysamphibia is monophyletic. That makes sense, Anandusha, yeah. So Lysamphibia includes frogs and salamanders and critters like that. But, oh, boy. Yeah. So here's Lysamphibia, which are all modern amphibians. Wait, they are tetrapods? Oh, yeah, of course they're tetrapods. Never mind. What am I saying? But they're not amniotes. They are all non-amniotic tetrapods are Lysamphibians. But there are several extinct groups that are not part of this. Anyway, yeah. We love cladistics. I'm a fish. Sir Steggles, you are indeed, yeah. Yeah. And Gimpleg, I wouldn't be that dramatic about it. But I didn't think that... I guess when I think of amphibians, I'm thinking of Lysamphibia here. I'm not thinking of this broader group, Amphibia, but anyway, for the 8th time, let's go back to this real quick.
Evolution, things get a little trickier because reptiles as a group are what's known as paraphyletic. In a paraphyletic group, all members of that group descend from a common ancestor, but the group doesn't contain all descendants from that common ancestor. Someone really important is missing when we talk about reptiles. Birds. Birds, which are descended from dinosaurs, are actually an offshoot of the reptile family tree, and a relatively recent one. In fact, crocodiles, which we think of as reptiles, are more closely related to birds than they are to turtles, which we also think of as reptiles. And yet birds have their own class, aves. You can't have a class within a class, so birds can't be included under reptilia. This makes reptilia a paraphyletic group. So if you were simply comparing one class to another...
You can't have a class within a class. That's like, you know, this old system here, which... You can. Why not? You know? Birds can be a kind of reptile, which could be a kind of amphibian, which could be a kind of fish. It's... You just got to think about these things in a different way, you know? This old system like this, with these, like, different groups of animals, it's very limited. It doesn't actually make a ton of sense, you know? Yeah.
You may not realize how close birds and crocodiles are, nor how ancient and unique turtles are. Taxonomy should ideally help us understand how life evolved, but in cases like this, it can be misleading. Incidentally, we've mostly phased out fish as a group, since in order for it to be monophyletic, we'd have to include humans, because we're...
Yep. And Anaducia says the old system is a decent everyday system to differentiate. It's not scientific, though. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't really reflect reality. It reflects the way that we perceive living things today. But if we actually want to understand them and understand their evolutionary history and understand where they are in the grand scheme of things, how they relate to one another, then yeah, it's woefully out of date. Oh yeah. And I'm all for calling humans fish. I mean, it's true, Sir Steggles, yeah. Humans and all other vertebrate animals are fish. Rise, my fishy brethren. Yeah, yeah. It reminds me of a thing. Let me find that real quick. But by the way, Nerduino showed up in the chat earlier. Nerduino, I don't know if you're still here. But can we get a shout out for Nerduino? Nerduino, who is, holy cow, putting together a special event for us, which I need to add to the calendar here. I have the 17th here listed as no stream on the calendar. This is incorrect now. Let's get rid of that. We are having a... special stream here. Starting at noon Pacific, I believe. Nerduino wanted to put together a special, like, kind of redux of our... Redux? Redu? How do you say that word? Of our TwitchCon science panel there. And we're going to be having that on Moohoodle's channel on the 17th, a Sunday, at noon. Really excited about that. So, yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. Anyway, go follow Nerduino, former NASA technologist and astronomer. Talks about science, answers your questions. It's Nerduino does like what I do, but for space science, planetary science, NASA-related topics, rocket launches, etc., go follow Nerduino if you're not yet doing that. Yeah. Anyway, good stuff. Good stuff. And now it is here on our calendar. Excellent. Yeah. What was I talking about with humans, strictly speaking, being a kind of fish, just like all vertebrate animals are? Let me find that passage from that book for you. Hang on. Here we are. I believe it's in Ray Troll's book, Planet Ocean. A Story of Life, the Sea, and Dancing to the Fossil Record by Brad Matson and Ray Troll. Well, well, well. I turned right to it. This is, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very well. But, oh boy. I don't have my desk camera up and running yet. But Ripedistian realization. Suddenly the children understood their arms were indeed lobe fins. Can we find this in Google Images? Because I don't have my desk cam up and running yet. After having just moved. Realization, not revelation. What am I saying here? But even that is not showing up. Shoot. Anyway, this guy Ray Troll did this excellent artwork here. There's a self-portrait. There, he does a lot of fish artwork. Apologies. When I have the desk cam up and running, I can show you stuff like this. But yeah. It's good stuff. What I'm talking about is right here. Sorry you can't see properly right now. But lovely book, it really is. Planet Ocean. Ray Troll does really, really excellent work. His stuff is really cool. And he writes a lot about fishes, does a lot of illustrations of fishes and fossils in general. Yeah. Let's see. Here, take a look at this.
Hey, fish face, I know who you are. Hey, fish face, no, you ain't no superstar. Hey, fish face.
Creek Street in Ketchikan, Alaska, a former red light district where men went with one thing on their mind.
Fish.
These days, it's only the salmon that head upstream to spawn, but men still make the trip to peruse merchandise. However, what's for sale in this old house is much different than in the old days.
The Soho Coho down on Creek Street, which is, appropriately, it's in an old house of ill repute.
The owner of the shop and its wares, Alaska artist.
Still of ill repute, but more paleontologically ill repute.
There's people that walk in and sometimes they're horrified because it's just not their cup of tea.
The walls of Soho Coho have seen their fair share of racy stuff. And not a lot changed when Troll moved in.
There ain't no nookie like Snooki.
If I'm ever in Anchorage, I gotta visit. Yeah.
There ain't no motion like the ocean. And there ain't no humpies in my bed.
Paintings, postcards, t-shirts, plastered with Troll's spin on life.
But I really do think that I believe firmly in making art accessible for everybody to have.
Accessible to buy, but not always to air. We'd love to tell you the rest of There's No Like a Coho, but I'm sure you can figure it out. And if there's one message Troll expects written on his grave,
But spawn till you die. Seems to be my one iconic image, you know. What can I say? I peaked early.
Spawn Until You Die in '87. It's his most famous piece, but there are plenty more where that came from.
Just, yeah, catchy phrases that, you know, double entendre, and yeah, a lot of fun.
You gotta have a good sense of humor in life.
So, you know, it's just a
there's
combination.
also NASCAR.
Yeah. How he combines the pictures and the
NASCAR
and the puns but the artistry is very nice. So
There's a theme that flows through Troll's Finn artwork.
Inevitably, yeah, I'm always asked at just about every single interview, why the fish? And to which I reply, well, why not?
But he knows why.
And I use them as really vehicles to express my ideas. And sometimes it's sort of dark, twisted humor.
Troll's an appropriate
Other
name for the
times
student. There you
just
go,
a
Steely
silly
Dan,
joke,
yeah.
And other times there's some layers going on there, you know what I mean?
You could say Alaska really brought out the artist in Troll, and the inspiration keeps coming.
I'll write them down, I'll jot them down, or I'll just have it, I'll do little thumbnails.
Was that a Ceratosaurus right there?
Something I'm thinking about.
Well, hang on.
It keeps coming.
I'll write them down, I'll jot them down.
That was a Ceratosaurus. Check that out. Yeah. Very nice. You see that nasal horn right there? Ceratosaurus.
Jot 'em down, or I'll just have it, I'll do little thumbnails. So here's the ugliest catch. It's something I'm thinking about. Or here's Got Ink. See, it's an octopus. See, Got Ink.
From dirty doodles to magnificent murals.
They're pretty much Alaskan fish, but have all kinds of things hidden in here. But the kicker is it's 3D. Check it out with the glasses.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
That's all I get is a oh wow.
And even the occasional
Bearded
bite.
Fortress, thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that.
Troll's taste may not be your taste,
That's a bull buffalo there.
but he doesn't care.
First thing you think of and see in my work, most people know me, fish.
Yeah.
Fish. What's with the fish? So it was fish that got me up here, and it's fish that have kept me here. But it's not all I do. I do lots of other stuff. But, yeah, I'm still the fish guy. You know.
Yeah.
I cannot forsake my fish.
Whether it's sketching or spawning, his message is simple. Do what you love until you die. With photographer Mike Niederbrock, I'm Jackie Bartz for
Ceratosaurus guitar playing prowess, Blue Laser. That sort of behavior does not typically fossilize, so I can't really say anything about that, I'm afraid. Yeah. This is only the ones they could show on public TV? Yes, indeed. Steely Dan, yep. What's the jackalope descended from? Presumably from a rabbit, Copernicus cat. But yeah, if you like Ray Troll's work, here, hang on. Let's take a look at this.
I'm lying on Boot Hill in Republic.
This is, well, shoot. Cruising the Fossil Freeway. Here's again Kirk Johnson. He keeps showing up. Holy cow. Guy gets around. But Kirk Johnson did a book with Ray Troll. Written by Kirk Johnson, illustrated by Ray Troll, called Cruising the Fossil Freeway. It is good stuff. I would recommend it for sure if you like this kind of artwork and if you like slightly off-color prose as well. Not really. That's not making it sound more risque than it is. But here's Kirk Johnson, who's director of the National Museum of Natural History at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. Check it out.
I'm lying on Boot Hill in Republic, Washington now, just a few blocks away from the Stone Rose Center. The fossil site's right here in town, so you just get your bag of digging tools and walk up the street through town up to the edge of town, and here's Boot Hill. And I'm lying in an Eocene lake bed. It looks like a hill full of rock, but really what it is the remains of what used to be a lake. And in all lakes, mud settles to the bottom and makes layers and layers and layers of mud. Eventually, if the lake's lucky enough to get buried even deeper, that mud will be squished into mud stone. And that's what we have here. It's a hill made of rock that's made of mud. And the rock settled to the bottom, the mud settled to the bottom of the lake about 50 million years ago. So I'm in a 50 million year old lake, and what I'm trying to do
was
is
that a Monty Python reference?
what that lake was like. And the way you do that is look at the layers. So the layers of shale or mud rock are piled up neatly here. You can see they're different from each other. Some of them are darker, some of them are lighter. And that tells you about what was happening in the lake. Maybe there was more sediment being washed into the lake. Maybe a volcano erupted nearby and shed volcanic ash into the lake. So all of that is the study of the layers, studying the layers. It's just like that stack of pancakes I ate the other day at the restaurant. These are layers of rock that used to be layers of sediment. And to study these things, you have to clean them off and measure them carefully. Measure and describe each layer. The ones on the lower part are older than the ones on the topper part. That's just a simple law of superposition. These were here first, these came next, these came next. And what I'm interested in is finding out is how exactly old are these lake beds? Are they 50 million years old? Are they 49.5 million years old? The way I'm going to do that is to take a sample of this lake bed and look for little tiny crystals of zircon that were formed in volcanoes.
We were talking about zircons yesterday. We were talking about those little crystals that preserve radioactive isotopes within them that you can later date. Oh man, we're building on a topic from yesterday here. This is good stuff.
And those crystals will allow me to use uranium, lead, radiometric dating. And with luck, I can get a precise age for this Republic Lake. So we can actually ask the question, exactly how old are those fossils that you find in Republic? Right now we say they're about 50 million years old, and that's based on a
stones. There you go, Codmos. Sure.
In this region some years ago. But we have not yet dated this exact hill. If you want to know exactly how old these fossils are, you need to date this hill.
They say the data's in the strata. That's all you need to know.
Good stuff.
To understand the world today, you gotta dig that dirt below.
Good stuff indeed. Anyway, yeah, we've like for over an hour now tried to get through this video and haven't done it yet. So let's see if we can do that.
But in cases like this, it can be misleading. Incidentally, we've mostly phased out fish as a group.
Fish,
Since in order for it to be monophyletic, we'd have to include humans because we're also descended from the same ancestor. Over time, we've focused more and more on these systematic relationships, and we've retired some old groups when they stop making sense. But it's an ongoing process, and we still have wonky groups like reptilia. There are also some weird problems with the idea of the ranks themselves. At the most basic level, there are tricky problems with how we define species. But there are also questions about how some of those higher order groups are organized as well, like orders or phyla. That's because there isn't an objective test for whether something should count as a class or phylum. It's not like 99% DNA match is a genus, 95% is a family, 90 is a class, etc. This can create situations where groups of the same rank aren't comparable to one another. They're not equivalent.
That is really important to understand. Shoot. When I was talking about how like this whole like phylum, kingdom, class, order, family, genus, species thing, it doesn't actually work that way in biology. You know, we're not talking about physics or chemistry here. Biology is a lot more squishy. It's a lot more complicated. It's a lot more complex. It's more difficult. That's what I'm talking about here, you know?
Cnidaria, a group that includes critters like jellyfish and coral.
Yeah.
Cnidaria is a phylum, a high-level rank just below kingdom. As vertebrates, our phylum is Chordata. And since they're both phyla, you might be tempted to think of them as roughly equal.
But they're
like
not.
Maybe the groups are roughly as old as each other, or contain about the same amount of genetic diversity. or the same number of species. But depending on how you look at
Nope.
it, Cnidaria is actually a much bigger group. In fact, the
Yep.
genetic difference between true jellyfish and box jellyfish is about the same as between a human and a sea urchin.
That's wild to think about, right? I mean, holy cow. True jellyfish and box jellyfish. Let's look them up on the Tree of Life here real quick. Let's get to box jellyfish here. Way far away from amphibians, where we were previously. There's box jellyfish there. 54 species. And, true jellyfish is not on here, but... oh boy. Up to there. Anyway, I don't really know enough about cnidarians to be able to navigate the trees sufficiently for this. But there's a tremendous amount of genetic diversity, like genetic disparity between those two different groups, true jellyfish and box jellyfish. So yeah.
Or the same number of species. But depending on how you look at it, Cnidaria is actually a much bigger group. In fact,
Yep.
the genetic difference between true jellyfish and box jellyfish is about the same as between a human and a sea urchin, a group that belongs to another phylum altogether. So again, for a system that's supposed to help us understand the world, it's got some serious flaws. Now, don't get me wrong, taxonomy is really useful. Life is a continuum, and classification is a tool that we use to understand it. Without it, we'd struggle to describe the organisms around us or understand evolutionary relationships. But we've also seen some of the quirks of our current system.
I know, right, Golganek?
And
Isn't that
those
wild?
quirks can have consequences. For one, we need the insights taxonomy gives us to be able to protect the natural world. For countries or governments to make policy decisions about animal and plant species, they need to know what species are out there. Like if a national park is trying to understand the diversity of animals in their borders, it's important to know whether two populations of fish are related. Or if crops are being attacked by a new invasive species of insect, knowing exactly what species it is can help farmers, scientists, and policymakers protect the food supply. So if our systems and ranks aren't clear, it can become harder to understand these kinds of problems. And of course, taxonomy can really affect researchers too. For example, a paper published in 2016 in the journal Current Biology claimed that it's not uncommon for researchers to treat these ranks as actual biological patterns rather than human-made aids. They're there as a tool to aid our understanding.
We even do this in dinosaur paleontology, shoot, where we talk about like, oh, the incredible diversity of theropoda compared to that of Thyreophora. You know, even though these are roughly the same rank, it's like it's not really, ranks are not real in biology. They're just not. Like that's not how biology works.
Understanding, not as an absolute rule. Yet, as long as they exist, the paper suggests people will be tempted to focus on them. To fix things, some researchers have proposed standardizing taxonomic ranks, like by using when different groups diverged in Earth's history as a
That's an
yardstick
interesting
for
idea.
assigning ranks. But it's worth noting that reorganizing things can sometimes be cumbersome due to
It'd
the
be
way that
really
the rank
tough.
While
Yeah.
many of the classic groups like Reptilia or Mammalia have names that wouldn't change, taxonomic convention dictates that certain categories like family or subfamily have precise suffixes. This means that by convention, if you upgrade or downgrade a group, it might need to have its name changed. And that can cause headaches for future
that'd be really
researchers.
painful.
So why
Yeah.
not just ditch the idea of trying to classify life by characteristics, like those body plans or eggshells? Some researchers have proposed and backed a whole new system called phylocode. First published in 2000, it's based on evolutionary relationships from the get-go. So a group like Reptilia could be described as the group that contains crocodiles and turtles, but not frogs.
And yeah, I've also heard this is like a cladistic classification method, and it works. It might seem a little strange, but it actually works.
Traditional orders and phyla would still exist as part of those groupings, but wouldn't necessarily be assigned any special rank. There have been pushback around things like how stable and useful these new categories would be in the long term, like how often they'd need to be rearranged or reclassified, as well as whether or not people could still use Latin names. Since the first draft in 2000, the idea has been updated to make things easier, but it's still a big undertaking. In the end, this problem is complicated, because we've had the old system for literally centuries, so revamping it would, well, take a bit of work. And to make things more complicated, it's work we may not be able to afford, because the biggest problem facing taxonomy today is probably a lack of resources. There aren't enough taxonomists, and they're facing serious funding shortages.
Remember when I always talk about how scientists are typically overworked and underpaid? For people who work on taxonomy in particular, this is very, very, very true. Holy cow.
A 2015 report published by the Royal Society of New Zealand, for instance, suggests that New Zealand was losing its taxonomists to a lack of investment and staff not being replaced. This is a problem because although we've described about 1.5 million species so far, and
there you go,
about
Anandusha,
20,000 new animal species alone are described each year, it's still only a fraction of the tree of life. By one estimate, there might be at least 10 million species on the planet, and that's only considering eukaryotic species, those whose cells have a nucleus. Another study estimated that nearly 90% of those eukaryotes have yet to be described.
And holy cow, when we look at our tree of life here.
In one vast supercontinent, dinosaurs soon occupied every corner of that world.
And thank you, Sir Steggles. Holy cow.
Why did this only no pop up? Twitch, get your act together.
Well, maybe that's the exact time 4 months ago that you subscribed. Was it 4:36 p.m. California time? Sir Steggles, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, here we've got 2,235,076 species for all life here. Could it be that 90% of eukaryotic species have not been described yet? So that could mean that, holy moly, there could be 20 million species that exist on Earth today. 90% of them have not yet been described. And that's not even including prokaryotes, critters that do not have a nucleus in their cells. That's pretty amazing.
And there are some habitats like the deep sea that are so remote that scientists find new species every time they visit. Many fields do rely on amateur collectors. Entomology, which is the study of insects, is a major example. And those folks are great to have. But to describe a species, there are a lot of things people need to keep in mind, like providing enough descriptions, potentially including illustrations, as well as making everything fit within the existing ranks. That takes time, and we're kind of on the clock. Climate change and other human activity puts us on a timer as species disappear. So it's a messy problem. To get around the lack of taxonomists, some researchers have proposed basing taxonomy not on painstaking analysis of body parts or ranges, but on DNA barcodes.
Yeah,
For example,
DNA
a
sequences.
2019 paper proposed that for hyper-diverse groups of animals like parasitoid wasps,
Yeah, ichneummonid wasps. These are the ones that lay their eggs in a living host, and then the young, when they emerge, they eat their way through the host, leaving the vital organs intact until the very end, so the organism stays alive. It's kind of like Alien from Aliens, you know?
that
Yeah.
new species be described by comparing specific DNA
And there you go, Tony. Yeah, I
rather
have
than
heard
by
about that.
analyzing their bodies or homes. However, not everyone wants to do things this way. For one thing,
Yeah, Anadusha is not a big fan of basing stuff on DNA barcoding alone. Yeah.
it'd mean that you might need to have a DNA lab to investigate whether something you found is a new species, which could put taxonomic work out of the reach of amateurs or people working in less developed areas. So yeah, it's really complicated, and there's probably not one easy solution either. In the end, taxonomy is a powerful tool, and one that modern biology would not be able to function without. But some scientists have argued that it needs to change with the times. the way biology as a whole has done. Linnaeus didn't know what a gene was, and he also predated Darwin by more than a century. So while his binomial system has gotten us this far, it doesn't always reflect what we know now. Ultimately, it might be time to prune a few branches on the tree of life. Thanks for watching this deep dive, and thanks to our patrons who make it possible for us to make episodes just like this one.
Good stuff. I'll give you a link to this video right here so you can give it a thumbs up or subscribe or whatever you'd like to do. Thank you to SciShow for putting that out there. Good stuff. I guess the whole point of that is science, especially biological sciences, are complicated. And we have so much left to learn. It is really kind of astonishing how much left we have to learn. But that's job security, you know? Well, it's not actually, strictly speaking, job security, but it means that there's so much left out there still to be done, at least. It doesn't actually directly lead into job security, unfortunately. But yeah. Do taxonomy and paleontology only based on DNA barcoding, and you will give up pretty... There you go, and we don't have DNA for critters like dinosaurs, for instance, but yeah. Anyway. Is a rolling moss gathering no stones or something? There you go, confused echidna. Yeah. Speaking of rolling moss gathering no stones, why don't we talk about this a little bit, shall we? We've got some news. This is something that I mentioned in the stream title for today. There we go. And, oh, we have now dropped into second place. Shoot. Oh, goodness. Uwu to Owo has passed us up. But there we go. Tyrannosaur stomach contents, dinosaur growth, and Mesozoic ecology. Let's talk about that here, shall we? Some of you have already heard about some of this news. This is the reason why I've got Gorgosaurus on display right here, and right there. Gorgosaurus has been in the news lately. Some of you may have heard about this. First of its kind Tyrannosaur fossil reveals what younglings ate. Not like Star Wars younglings, like Tyrannosaur younglings. The predator's last supper shows different diets of young and adults, which may have shaped ecosystems. Ancient ecosystems. And there is a Gorgosaurus eating some little Oviraptorosaurs there. This is such cool work, and this is right up my alley as a dinosaur paleontologist. I'm very, very excited about this. Yeah. Oh boy. I also love the artwork here. So this is Gorgosaurus, which is a dinosaur that lived a little bit before T-Rex. It's also a Tyrannosaur. Gorgosaurus. Yeah. It is a Tyrannosaur, like I said, a little bit earlier than T-Rex. It's not as big as T-Rex, but it is not the kind of dinosaur you would want to run into in a dark alley, or a well-lit alley, or even an alley full of security guards. It would eat the security guards and then maybe eat you. Gorgosaurus. There you go, Steely Dan. Yeah. It's a formidable animal. It really is. Gorgosaurus. Here, I'm trying to pull up this skeletal image there. There we go. Yeah. A formidable creature. Gorgosaurus. So let's get into it and why this new finding is so exciting. Fully grown tyrannosaurs were fearsome predators. And this article written by Rodrigo Perez Ortega. With powerful jaws and piercing teeth, they could kill huge herbivores larger than themselves. But young tyrannosaurs ate different and much smaller prey. Paleontologists report today in Science Advances. A new fossil with the remains of its Last Supper confirms these carnivores switched their diet as they grew. This is something that we call niche partitioning through ontogeny. And what is ontogeny? These are the changes that a creature undergoes as it grows and matures. Like you see here in Triceratops.
Ontogeny.
Yeah. So, changes in ontogeny happen during an animal's lifespan. It starts off really small like this, and then it grows, and as it's growing, it's going to eat different things, presumably. Maybe live in a different environment from the adults. Dinosaurs had tremendous changes during ontogeny.
Ontogeny.
It's something that, it turns out, if you really want to understand dinosaurs, you really have to understand their ontogeny. So yeah. Yeah. And this is all about that. These carnivores switched their diet as they grew, and I guess this is the original paper right there too. This is a Tyrannosaur's last meal preserved in stone. How amazing is that? Says Steve Brusati, a paleontologist at the University of Edinburgh, who was not involved in the new work. This is direct evidence of what a Tyrannosaur was eating, not guesswork. Yeah. As heavy as a white rhino and 9 meters from tooth to tip of tail, the Tyrannosaur Gorgosaurus libratus was the king of the land some 77 million years ago in what is now Alberta in Canada. Based on fossilized poop and gnawed bones, researchers know adults use their bone-crushing teeth to eat large plant-eating dinosaurs the size of an African elephant, such as Triceratops. Gorgosaurus did not eat Triceratops. Tyrannosaurus ate Triceratops. Gorgosaurus is from before. Let's clear this up. So here is our geologic time chart right here. Tyrannosaurus is from the Maastrichtian epoch, right here, at the very end of the Cretaceous period. Gorgosaurus is from in the Campanian, from before. So Triceratops and T-Rex lived up here in the Maastrichtian. Gorgosaurus lived with a lot of other Campanian dinosaurs here in the Campanian. So yeah. What young Tyrannosaurs ate, however, has been a matter of debate because their skulls and teeth look less sturdy than those of the adults. This different anatomy, researchers think, indicates that their diet probably changed as they grew. And this is something like we have been talking about for a long time here on this channel. This is validating to actually see this published. In the new study, Darla Zelenitsky, a dinosaur paleobiologist at the University of Calgary, and her colleagues describe a new fossil of a juvenile Gorgosaurus that lived about 75 million years ago in Alberta's Dinosaur Provincial Park, one of the richest dinosaur fossil deposits in the world. The whippersnapper was about 5 to 7 years old, some 4 meters long, and weighed about 350 kilograms, as much as a large domestic pig, and about 1/10 the heft of its parent. Fossils of young dinosaurs from the area are rare, Zelenitsky said, because the rivers that traverse the region's floodplains. And Draxteo, thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome. Floodplains tended to break up the smaller, more fragile juvenile skeletons after death. This is very true. It is much more difficult to find the skeletons of younger dinosaurs than adult dinosaurs. You've got a lot of factors in there that are kind of acting against you being able to find young dinosaur skeletons, for sure. Even more rare is what the juvenile skeleton contains, the fossilized remains of 2 smaller dinosaurs. The researchers identified them as the bird-like raptor Cytipes elegans. Both lacked growth marks on the bones, so they were probably less than 1 year old, weighing as much as a modern-day turkey. And Cytipes looks like this. It is a little Oviraptorosaur dinosaur. So yeah, I love the Laura Dern silhouette there for scale. That's lovely. Cytipes is the little one there. Cytipes may or may not be a juvenile of Chirostenotes or Cainognathus, however you want to say it. These are Oviraptorosaurs. These are feathered theropod dinosaurs. There is Cytopus right there. Not much bigger than a cat. So this little dinosaur was a snack for a juvenile Gorgosaurus. And non-binary, how are you doing? Welcome to Paleontologizing. It's good to have you here. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that was the dinosaur that got snacked on there. This is the first time that we actually have a direct evidence that young tyrannosaurs were eating smaller young dinosaurs, Zelenitsky says. Adult tyrannosaurs, she adds, probably wouldn't trifle with such small creatures. They didn't provide many calories. The young Gorgosaurus also seems to have been choosy, Zelenitsky says, because it ate only the 2 hind legs of each Cytopus, the meatiest part of the prey. So yeah, just eating the thighs, the drumsticks there, as somebody in the chat was saying earlier. Yeah. The condition of the bone suggests that Gorgosaurus swallowed both within hours or days. Small theropods like Cytopus laid nests with 30 or so eggs, so maybe there were a lot of small Cytopus running around, she says. This is an amazing find, says Felisa Smith, paleontologist at the University of New Mexico, who was not involved with the study. It is super rare. Although the results are only based on one individual, which is not ideal to make ecological inferences, she says the interpretation is pretty reasonable, and I would agree with that. Yeah. Paleontologists have long suspected that tyrannosaurs fed on equal or smaller sized prey until the age of 11 or so, when they had a growth spurt. And, yeah, this is totally a thing. When we're talking about... Oh, and this is some lovely art from R.J. Palmer here. For the game Saurian. Incredible work. This is Tyrannosaurus, which is a later relative of Gorgosaurus. We've got a juvenile here, maybe about a year old. This one's probably 4 or 5 years old, something like that. And then when they're like a teenager, they've got these long, lanky legs like this. They're probably active pursuit predators. And then after a while, they go through this massive growth spurt. And then they turn into a huge, massive, hulking adult like this. These dinosaurs are so different. Like, excuse me, this same dinosaur is so different at different growth stages that they have been confused for different dinosaurs in the past. They look very different from one another, even though it's the same critter at different growth stages. Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And so the Gorgosaurus that we're talking about is probably about this big, or maybe a little bit smaller than that. Actually, probably maybe closer to this. But it's eating these little city pests like that. Yeah. Anyway, one of the reasons why I really, really love this new study and why it's so exciting to me is that some of these ideas that we've been talking about for a while as dinosaur paleontologists who are really into ontogeny, it's vindicating, I guess. Yeah. So paleontologists have long suspected that tyrannosaurs fed on equal or smaller prey until the age of 11 or so, when they had a growth spurt, that big growth spurt that I just showed you. They couldn't have taken on large herbivores or their tiny offspring, because they roamed in herds, but after tyrannosaurs bulked up enough, they gradually switched to hunting these large herbivores. Smith agrees, but based on the similar tooth wear of very young and adult tyrannosaurs, she thinks adults could have also fed pieces of larger prey to their babies. She adds the new findings could also help explain why dinosaur diversity was lower than that of other groups of animals at the time. At different life stages, they occupied the roles of 2 different species in the ecosystem, she says. This is ontogenetic niche partitioning. This is extremely important to understand, and I think, I've been saying this for a while, this is going to be like a new frontier in dinosaur paleobiology, and here it is. Oh, this is exciting. Yeah. That left less room for other dinosaurs of intermediate body size than those of the teenage tyrannosaurs. And we've got a talk about this. Let me see if I can find that. By Kat Schroeder, I believe. Yeah, there we go. Good stuff.
Ontogeny.
This is really, really neat. Yeah, here. Check this out. This is a talk by dinosaur paleontologist Kat Schroeder. And this is fairly new stuff. This was streamed 2 years ago. She's kind of on the cutting edge of this sort of thing here, which is really exciting. Here's the sound.
There are a lot of questions about why herbivorous dinosaurs might not be small that we won't get into here, but it is a very interesting question. The carnivores are a different kind of situation.
Yeah, like
when we look at
tyrannosaurs.
the carnivores, we see where that bimodality comes from in that overall community set, right? Unlike the herbivores, carnivores actually have their highest diversity in small body sizes.
Yep,
So they're
lots
the
and lots of
exact
small
opposite
theropod
of the global
dinosaurs.
distribution. They are fairly diverse below 60 kilograms. So carnivores in general just don't mirror their global distribution, and again, indicating that there's an ecological driver in their body mass distribution.
Yep.
So interestingly, the bias against small dinosaurs in the fossil record doesn't really appear to be affecting the carnivores at the local level. And then we have this really distinct gap, right? And
Yep.
This is the crux for the rest of the presentation. There is a super low diversity of carnivores between 100 and 1,000 kilograms. This is really weird, right? It's over the commonly cited threshold for size bias. Right? Remember, Behrensmeyer was finding that in modern organisms, anything below 100 kilograms was kind of missing. Brown et al. Found that anything below 60 kilograms was kind of missing. This is actually above that.
And I kind of wonder, wasn't there a PBS Eons video about this? That might lay this out in a slightly more accessible way for non-specialists? Yeah. Where are all the medium-sized dinosaurs? Is this it right here? Yeah, here. Check this out. I think this will get into that same idea, and this new paper has bearing on this. Exciting stuff.
In 1942, the Cleveland Museum of Natural History organized a fossil hunting expedition.
Oh, yeah. This is totally getting into it with Nanotyrannus and all of that. Yeah. Displacer says, wouldn't the bigger dromaeosaurs occupy similar niches to juvenile T-Rex? Maybe, but yeah, they would have been in competition at smaller sizes for juvenile T-Rex, but dromaeosaurs don't seem to get very big when you've got tyrannosaurs around. The biggest dromaeosaurs that we have are very early on. Critters like Utahraptor is the biggest of the dromaeosaurs. Once you have tyrannosaurs that start doing their thing, tyrannosaurids, you don't get big dromaeosaurs anymore. And you're probably thinking, well, what about Dakotaraptor? Dakotaraptor probably isn't real. So yeah, Displacer. Great question. Here, I might go run to the bathroom real quick, but I'm gonna play this video for you.
Through southeastern Montana. There,
Yeah.
the crew prospected the Hell Creek Formation.
Yeah,
a
in
world-famous
Carter County.
deposit dating back to the very late Cretaceous period, one that's known for fossils of Tyrannosaurus rex. And on that
Yeah.
trip, they found a fossil that sure looked like a T-Rex. Clearly, it belonged to a member of the same family. Whatever this
Yep.
thing was, it lived at the same time and in the same place as T-Rex did. But at just 57 centimeters long, the skull was less than
And oh boy, I really want to print this skull. It's gonna take a long time to print it, but I want to print this thing, because that'd be really cool to have. That would have been an excellent thing to actually have on display today. But I don't have it printed yet. The Cleveland Museum skull of what used to be called Nanotyrannus.
than half the size of the biggest known Tyrannosaurus heads. Today, some paleontologists call this fossil the Cleveland skull, and it
Yep.
wasn't the last odd find from Montana. In the
Here.
early 2000s,
I'll be back. I'm gonna run to the
scientists found another Tyrannosaurus-like fossil, which they nicknamed Jane. This one was a partial skeleton, except Jane didn't look like a typical T-Rex either. Its limbs were proportionately longer, and like the Cleveland skull, it had narrower teeth than a full-size T-Rex. And it was only about 6.5 meters long, much smaller than a 12.3 meter adult T-Rex, which makes Jane a very unusual creature. See, in some parts of the dinosaur fossil record, you've got your big carnivores and your small carnivores, without much in between. Call it the carnivore gap. The remains of medium-sized predatory dinosaurs, animals weighing between 100 and 1,000 kilograms, are actually pretty rare in places where giant predators like T-Rex existed, which is weird because that's just not how ecosystems work today. For example, if South Africa's Kruger National Park had the same carnivore gap as some dinosaur communities did, then every meat-eating mammal species at the park would either be lion-sized or no bigger than a 4-kilogram bat-eared fox. So what's going on here? How can we explain this dino-size gap? Well, some experts think that predators like T-Rex went through some growing pains. And if that's true, maybe the medium-sized dinos we've been looking for were hiding in plain sight all along. Now, at most dig sites around the world, small to mid-sized dinosaurs, in general, aren't very common. That goes for carnivores,
hang on here.
herbivores.
Neolithic, thank you for the 5 gift subs there. That is excellent, Neolithic.
Change things with those 5 gift subs.
And I do really appreciate that. Thank you, Neolithic. Holy moly. Thank you for those 5 gift subs. There's now 5 people in the chat who won't have to worry about any ads until well into next year now. January 12th is the next time they'll have to worry about seeing any ads on this channel, thanks to you, Neolithic. Thank you for your generosity and your support. I really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, holy moly. I forgot how good this video was. But yeah. So there is a big size gap in dinosaurs here, and this is exactly what Kat Schroeder was talking about. In fact, this is like taken directly from her talk here, which is really cool.
This is some fairly large animals that seem to consistently not be in dinosaur communities.
Yep.
In fact, we find this gap in approximately 86% of our communities. And just to give you a context, this isn't a small gap, 100 to 1,000 kilograms. If we were to apply a similar mass distribution, so if we were to take what carnivorous dinosaur mass distributions look like and apply it to a modern mammalian carnivore assemblage of a similar size, something like Kruger, we would
Kruger National
actually
Park
lose
in South Africa.
all of the carnivorous mammals between the size of a bat-eared fox and a male African lion. So clearly, there's something going on here. This is a significant gap. It certainly can't be explained by size bias in the fossil record because it is above what we find as the bias in most instances. And when we do the math, actually, we do find that there is a significant correlation between the size of the gap and the size of the largest carnivore in the community. So there is
interesting stuff.
There's something else going on here. This isn't.
Yeah. So, what is going on here? Let's talk about it.
Dino-size gap. Well, some experts think that predators like T-Rex went through some growing pains. And if that's true, maybe the medium-sized dinos we've been looking for were hiding in plain sight all along. Now, at most dig sites around the world, small to mid-sized dinosaurs, in general, aren't very common. That goes for carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores alike. One contributing factor might be the fossilization process itself, because
preservational biases
in the fossil record. If you're a small animal with little bones, your skeleton.
And Dr. Irrefutable says, is this gap only applicable for a certain range of time? I think we're talking about the late Cretaceous here, Dr. Irrefutable. But it's not really been well investigated in other dinosaur faunas. So, you know, if we're talking about in the late Jurassic period, Morrison Formation, well, actually, there probably is a huge gap here as well in the Morrison. But I think what Kat Schroeder was really talking about here is like This in particular is the Dinosaur Park Formation. So that's the same formation from which this this new paper, the fossils in here, are from the same formation, the Dinosaur Park Formation. This is really, really well understood. So, like, the Dinosaur Park Formation has been very, very well studied. Over 100 years of work has gone on in the Dinosaur Park Formation. It would be really cool to see this extended to other geological formations as well that have big theropods in them, but to my knowledge, that's not really been done yet. Yeah. And hello to you, Swims with Whales. Welcome back. It's good to have you here. How are things? Hope you're doing well.
Skeleton is more likely to get broken up, eroded away, or picked apart by scavengers. That means big animals can be overrepresented at fossil sites. Another problem is rock availability. We don't have many fossil outcrops from certain points in geologic time, so we know less about those dinosaurs from those times. But it looks like there's more to this dinosaur-sized mystery. In 2012, 2 paleontologists analyzed the published size data for over 2,400 extinct animals, including 329 species of non-avian dinosaurs. And they compared this to the available info on living animals. Within all but one of the major animal groups these authors looked at, they found that small species are way more diverse than large ones, which makes sense. Small animals tend to need less food and less space, so it's easier for big populations of them to coexist with each other. But it looks like the non-avian dinosaurs may have bucked this trend.
They're weird. Dinosaurs got bigger on average than other critters, even other fossil critters for whom you would imagine the same like biases for fossilization would take place. Dinosaurs are just really good at being big. It's cool stuff.
Small-bodied, non-avian dinosaurs are vastly outnumbered by the big ones in the fossil record. And if we blamed all this on preservation bias, well, we'd be missing a...
Oh, and by the way, we've got an ad coming up in a little less than a minute here. If any of you would like to avoid ads here on Paleontologizing and not get constantly interrupted by annoying ads, which are, you know, they're like death and taxes and eventual extinction. They are inevitable. Imagine if you could avoid death or taxes or extinction for as little as $5 a month, or no money if you happen to have Amazon Prime. Use that free Prime sub there. You can subscribe to this channel and not have to worry about any ads at all. Just a thought as the ad encroaches here. Yeah.
A whole lot of dinosaurs. For example, let's assume the non-avian dinosaurs had the same ratio of big species to small ones as the extinct land mammals of the Cenozoic era did. If that were the case, then by the calculation in that study, about 90% of all extinct dinosaurs weighing under 60 kilograms that ever existed are completely absent from the global fossil record, which is highly improbable, according to the authors. It's possible that non-avian dinos as a group just naturally skewed larger than land mammals and other animals do. That said, we do still find the bones and skeletons from some small dinosaurs.
Sure,
At the end of the Cretaceous period, when T-Rex stalked North America, we know there were some little carnivores like Achiroraptor and Suranitholestes running around underfoot. Both probably weighed less than 25 kilograms.
But again, medium-sized predatory dinosaur bones are very uncommon in rocks where Tyrannosaurus fossils are found. And that's where Jane and the Cleveland skull come in. Many experts think that they were both juvenile T-Rex. Jane's probably a juvenile something at least. One study from 2020 on the microstructure of Jane's femur.
And does anybody recognize that name right there? Holly Woodward. When we were talking about histology last week, Holly Woodward was kind of our guide into that. Yeah.
And tibia.
Oh, and hang on a second. Oh, goodness.
One study from 2020.
Yeah, and there's my old boss, Jack Horner, right there. Katie Tremaine and Scott Williams are now at Museum of the Rockies, where I used to work in Montana. Lindsay Zano has done a ton of work in Utah. We've talked about her as well. Yeah.
On the microstructure of Jane's femur and tibia, found that it was only about 13 years old when it died, And other studies estimate that T-Rex could potentially live into their late 20s. And Jane was a lot lighter than the oldest, heaviest T-Rex specimens on record. Weighing around 660 to 954 kilograms, it definitely qualified as a medium-sized theropod, and so did the smaller Cleveland skull's owner. Now, those two animals, and a few other similar fossils that have turned up over the years, look very different from the huge T-Rex specimens paleontologists are used to finding. So much so that some authors think they represent an entirely different species.
Yeah, I think this is Nanotyrannus, which, honestly, the more I learn about tyrannosaurs, the more remote an idea this seems to be. Like, the chances of this actually being a real thing just seems more and more remote to me. But I could very well be wrong about that. We'll see. Future fossil finds will hopefully help elucidate this. We'll actually figure out what's going on here. But, yeah.
Supporters of this idea say that Jane and her mid-sized peers were a kind of dwarf tyrannosaur that's been called Nanotyrannus.
And Codmos is fire paleontologist and discovered an intact dinosaur species. Got to name it. I would dictate the measurements be in imperial units, not metric, as in be like legal dictation. It would get rejected by the editorial. Like, you wouldn't be able to publish that, Codmos. In science, we use metric. That's just how it works. Nobody uses imperial, you know? It's like, oh boy. So like, you would have to publish it in some sort of crank journal, and it would never be recognized by other scientists if you did something weird like decreeing that it has to be imperial and not metric. That's not how it works, you know? Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of this.
The metric system is the tool of the devil. My car gets 40 rods to the hog's head, and that's the way I likes it.
We don't use the imperial system in science because it just doesn't work properly, you know? Science is meant to be international. The whole point is that across borders, across languages, we can share our findings, and the metric system is the standard system across the world. In the US, we use the imperial system because of, like, all kinds of, you know, it's kind of like how the US doesn't have, you know, universal health care. It's like, that's a bad thing. And goodness, there's like tens of thousands of people who die every year because we don't have a universal healthcare system. It's a similar kind of like American exceptionalist thought that goes like, oh yeah, well, we don't like the metric system and we don't like having healthcare. It's like, that's really bad. It's not good. You know? Yeah. And even US scientists use metric? Absolutely. Jerry Risk, we do. Yeah. Yeah. And what if any cons are there for using metric measurements? Zero. Apart from maybe like your average American on the street might not know what a meter is, but they might know what a foot is. But, you know, they can learn. Where's the pro to use imperials? Same thing, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. And NASA once used imperial instead of metric by accident, and then... Yeah, is that true, Bulwark? I've heard rumors about that like one of the space shuttle explosions happened because some engineer somewhere or some contractor accidentally used the imperial system instead of the metric system. That's what caused the failure of a launch vehicle or something. That may have been what blew up one of the space shuttles. Yeah. Yeah. And even Britain left the imperial system behind because it makes no sense. Yeah, Jerry at Rick, it's... People still use inches in Britain, as I understand it, but the metric system is the standard across the world, and it makes sense, you know? You don't have to calculate, oh, there's 40 rods in every hogshead, which is equivalent to well, there's 39.6 of those in every football field or whatever, you know? Yeah. But yeah, and it was a lander or orbiter from Mars, I believe, says Displacer. Interesting. Okay. The Mars Climate Orbiter failed because the civilian contractor didn't use metric. Oh, no. Hogan, yeah. 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 Oh, shoot. Here it is. In September of 1999, after almost 10 years of travel to Mars, the Mars Climate Orbiter burned and broke into pieces. On a day when NASA engineers were expecting to celebrate, the ground reality turned into be completely different, all because someone failed to use the right units, i.e. the metric units. The Scientific American Space Lab made a brief but interesting video on this topic. You're gonna tell us there was a video and we don't have a link to it? Oh no. Yeah, shoot. Let's take a look at... Oh, why the metric system matters. This is going to be good, I'm sure. From Ted Head, I hope. Let's see. So what's better than the last one?
What does the French Revolution have to do with the time NASA accidentally crashed a $200 million orbiter into the surface of Mars? Actually, everything.
Yeah.
That crash happened due to an error in converting between two measurement systems, U.S. customary units and their SI or metric equivalents. So what's the connection to the French Revolution? Let's explain. For the majority of recorded human history, units like the weight of a grain or the length of a hand weren't exact and varied from place to place.
Yep.
Different regions didn't just use varying measurements, they had completely different number systems as well. By the late Middle Ages, the Hindu-Arabic decimal system mostly replaced Roman numerals and fractions in Europe.
Thank goodness.
But efforts by scholars like John Wilkins to promote standard decimal-based measures were less successful. With 250,000 different units in France alone, any widespread change would require massive disruption. And in 1789, that disruption came. The leaders of the French Revolution didn't just overthrow the monarchy. They sought to completely transform society according to the rational principles of the Enlightenment. When the new government took power, the Academy of Sciences convened to reform the system of measurements. Old standards based on arbitrary authority or local traditions were replaced with mathematical and natural relationships. For example,
which is how we now have it in science.
The Greek word for measure was defined as 1/10,000th between the equator and North Pole.
And that is actually, I did not know that. That's where a meter comes from? Very cool. Very cool. That's really neat. And metric time didn't work out. Yeah, Dr. Irrefutable. I think maybe we should try again with that. But yeah.
And the new metric system was, in the words of the Marquis de Condorcet, for all people, for all time.
Yeah.
Standardizing measurements had political advantages for the revolutionaries as well. Nobles could no longer manipulate local units to extract more rent from commoners.
Yeah, power to the people.
Could collect taxes more efficiently. And switching to a new Republican calendar with 10-day weeks reduced church power by eliminating Sundays.
10-day weeks. Oh boy, I hope at least 4 of those days are the weekend there. That you see how that didn't catch on.
Adoption
unfortunately.
of this new system wasn't easy. In fact, it was a bit of a mess. At first, people used new units alongside old ones.
Kind of like we do in the US today.
Was eventually abandoned.
Yeah.
When Napoleon Bonaparte took power, he allowed small businesses to use traditional measurements, redefined in metric terms. But the metric system remained standard for formal use, and it spread across the continent along with France's borders. While Napoleon's empire lasted 8 years, its legacy endured far longer. Some European countries reverted to old measurements upon independence. Others realized the value of standardization in an age of international trade. After Portugal and the Netherlands switched to metric voluntarily, other nations followed, with colonial empires spreading the system around the world. As France's main rival, Britain had resisted revolutionary ideas and retained its traditional units. But over the next 2 centuries, the British Empire slowly transitioned, first approving the metric system as an optional alternative before gradually making it official. However, this switch came too late for 13 former colonies that had already gained independence. The United States of America stuck with the English units of its colonial past, and today remains one of only 3 countries which haven't fully embraced the metric system.
Oh, boy. We're in good company there. Myanmar, formerly Burma, and Liberia, which was essentially like almost the inverse of like a U.S. colony. What a list, says Burnf. Yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah. Oh, they should have also included Antarctica in this, too, because Antarctica as a continent for science, as is often called, everybody uses metric there. Yeah, freedom units. There you go, Jarrett Rick. Yeah. Oh, boy.
Despite constant initiatives for metrication, many Americans consider units like feet and pounds more intuitive.
They're really not.
Some regard the once revolutionary metric system as a symbol of global conformity. Nevertheless, the metric system is almost universally used in science and medicine, and it continues to evolve according to its original principles. For a long time, standard units were actually defined by carefully maintained physical prototypes. But thanks to improving technology and precision, these objects with limited access and unreliable longevity are now being replaced with standards based on universal constants, like the speed of light.
Very cool.
Measurements are such an integral part of our daily lives that it's hard to appreciate what a major accomplishment for humanity they've been. And just as it arose from a political revolution, the metric system remains crucial for the scientific revolutions to come.
Yep, that's why the U.S. might very well get left behind in some of those and a number of other reasons. That's the sort of thing I'm trying to fight against here, You know what I mean, chat? Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, in this case, it is unwise to use the metric. I mean, it's the metric system just makes sense. It's decimal based.
As much as you can, and you can't enjoy science alone. You have to share it.
And Dex Phantom Hawk, thank you.
Thank you for the awesome work you do.
I appreciate you, Dex. Thank you for the 3 months of support. Excellent. Thank you, Dex. Thanks for keeping me here on the air. Appreciate you. I really do. Yeah. Yeah, how many eagles tall is a T-Rex? Is the Raven? Oh, no. Yeah. And yet, Dan the BC Man says, metric is easier to understand than feet. And inches. It's all based on tens. Exactly. And we have got 10 fingers. At least those of us who've not had grievous accidents. Yeah. Murph says, I like Fahrenheit better. That's probably just because you grew up with it. I mean, I also understand Fahrenheit better than I understand Celsius. But that's just because I grew up with it here, Celsius makes more sense. 0 is freezing point. 100 is boiling point for water, Although that might be the most intuitive part of the imperial system is degrees Fahrenheit. Because for human comfortability, those units do make slightly more sense, or they're a little bit more in tune with the human body, I guess, but that's, I don't know if it's by design or just by luck. But yeah. Yeah. Why not kelvins for temp? Because there's a phrase that I've heard before, and I've run this by chemists who haven't heard it before, and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That degrees Fahrenheit is like how humans feel. Degrees Celsius is how water feels. Degrees Kelvin is how atoms feel. And yeah, I don't know if you're talking about having fun in the warm California sun, we're talking about that as human beings, you know? We're not talking about that as water molecules or as atoms. So yeah, you like how I incorporated the song there? Good song. Yeah. Ungoy says Kelvin is the Elvish measurement. Kelvin. So actually 0 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature that brine, aka seawater, freezes. Is that true, Caterpillar? I didn't know that. Huh. But what percent... What percentage of salt is it? Well, because seawater is not the same salinity all around the world, right? Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Let's get back to our dinosaurs here. Shall we? And let's talk about juvenile versus adult dinosaurs. And again, we've got a difference of opinion here, in the same way that, like, some people are in favor of the imperial system versus the metric system. They're certainly in the minority. At the same time, you've got a certain number of paleontologists, dinosaur paleontologists, who are convinced that Nanotyrannus is a distinct genus of dinosaur, not the same thing as T-Rex. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
The smaller Cleveland skull's owner. Now, those two animals, and a few other similar fossils that have turned up over the years, look very different from the huge T-Rex specimens paleontologists are used to finding. So much so that some authors think they represent an entirely different species. Supporters of this idea say that Jane and her mid-sized peers were a kind of dwarf tyrannosaur that's been called Nanotyrannus lancensis. This would be really significant because if Nanotyrannus existed, it would help plug the carnivore gap that we see in late Cretaceous North America. The smaller animal would have likely filled a different ecological niche than T-Rex, its contemporary cousin. However, many recent studies don't think Nanotyrannus is a separate genus, or even a valid dinosaur.
I'm personally of the opinion that Nanotyrannus is just a juvenile Tyrannosaurus. Based on a number of different things. A lot of this just comes down to like a fundamental difference in philosophy. Are you a lumper or are you a splitter? And honestly, I'm not a splitter. If anything, I'm probably a lumper. These different critters are probably the same thing. There we go. Yeah.
So we can
There's
just
my old boss, Jack Horner, there.
The last one is T-Rex. So there's these two dinosaurs, T-Rex and Nanotyrannus. Again,
yeah.
Makes you wonder. But they had a good question. I mean, they were looking at it and they said, one's got 17 teeth and the biggest one's got 12 teeth. And that doesn't make any sense at all because we don't know of any dinosaurs that gain teeth as they get older, so.
And Jack misspoke there. He meant lose teeth, lose tooth sockets as they get older. Nanotyrannus, this like juvenile specimen here, has got more tooth rows than the adults.
That must be true. They must be different. So we cut into them.
Yep.
And sure enough, Nanotyrannus has juvenile bone.
Ungoy, there you go. Yeah.
The bigger one has more mature bone.
Yep.
Looks like it could still get bigger. And at the Museum of the Rockies where we work, I have 4 T-Rexes, so I can cut a whole bunch of them. But I didn't have to cut any of them, really, because I just lined up their jaws, and it turned out that the biggest one had 12 teeth, and the next smallest one had 13, and the next smallest had 14, and of course Nano has 17, and we just went out and looked in other people's collections, and we found one that has sort of 15 teeth. So again, real easy to say that Tyrannosaurus ontogeny included Nanotyrannus.
Yep.
And therefore, we could take out another dinosaur. So, when it comes down to our end Cretaceous, we have 7 left. And that's a good number. I mean, that's a good number to go extinct, I think. Now, as you can imagine, this is not very popular with 4th graders. 4th graders love their dinosaurs. They memorize them. And they're not happy with this. Thank you very much.
So yeah. Also, a lot of dinosaur paleontologists are not happy with this idea too. But this is science, and in science, eventually the truth will come out. So yeah. Is this where the ontogeny soundbite comes from? It is. Sharp ears there, Casey. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Experts on this side of the debate tend to identify Jane and the Cleveland skull as young Tyrannosaurus rex. And if that's the case, then T-Rex dramatically changed shape with age. Proportionately, Jane and Jane-like skeletons have longer legs than a full-size T-Rex.
I resent that.
And anatomical research published in 2020 found that Jane would have been a better sprinter
awful illustration.
and more agile overall than
Terrible.
a grown Tyrannosaurus. But the authors of the same paper also found mature T-Rex were better marathon walkers. They could travel more efficiently over great distances. Also, with narrower jaws and blade-shaped teeth, Jane probably couldn't bite as hard as the big guys did. And mathematical models back this up. Paleontologists have calculated that while Jane's maximum bite force was around 2,400 to 3,850 newtons, a full-size T-Rex could exert a bone-splintering 64,000 plus newtons when it
Holy
closed
cow.
its jaws.
Yeah.
Yikes. So, if Jane and the Cleveland skull were juvenile T-Rex, then the teenagers in this species were better sprinters and more agile than the grown-ups, but their bites were weaker. The adults may have been slower and less agile, but at least they had bone-crushing jaws to make up for it. Take all this information together, and it starts to look like young and old T-Rex were built for 2 very different lifestyles. It's possible that the speedier juveniles hunted small herbivores, like the roughly 2-meter Leptoceratops or the 4.5-meter Pachycephalosaurus.
Or smaller Oviraptorosaurs, like, for instance, Cydippus elegans, like we were talking about earlier. And this is exactly what this new publication shows here, is that that's what these guys were eating, is smaller herbivorous dinosaurs. So there you go.
While bite marks on fossils tell us that adults ate big game, such as Triceratops. So it looks like we've got a scenario where T-Rex adults filled the role of giant predator in late Cretaceous North America, and their teenage offspring acted as mid-sized predators. And maybe that helps explain the carnivore gap in that environment.
I think that's the case.
The reason we don't really find adult meat-eating dinosaurs of medium size in Tyrannosaurus's ancient habitat is because those animals would have faced stiff competition from juvenile T-Rex. So ecologically, one species did double duty. Basically, a single population of T-Rex would have occupied 2 different niches at the exact same time, all thanks to physical differences between the age groups. Ecologists call this ontogenetic niche shifting.
Or ontogenetic niche partitioning is another way of putting it. Same concept, two different terms.
Komodo dragons do the same thing today. Young Komodos weighing under 20 kilograms prefer smaller prey than adults do, and they actively wander around foraging for food.
Well, and they often live in trees too, so to avoid being eaten by the adults. They occupy a different niche, so it's like a different ecological job. They're doing a different thing in the ecosystem. They're eating different prey. They're living in a different part of the environment when they're young. And when they're adults, that changes.
Whereas grown dragons are sit-and-wait carnivores who prefer to hang out and let food come to them.
There you go.
Their niche changes with age. And just like dinosaurs, Komodos lay eggs. Egg laying explains the huge size difference between most colossal dinosaurs and their hatchlings. Physically, eggs can only get so large. Bigger eggs need thicker shells for
Oh, this is so good.
If the shell gets too thick, the embryo inside won't get enough oxygen. The biggest non-avian dinosaur eggs we've ever found are around 61 centimeters long, but the vast majority are a lot smaller, with most dino eggs probably weighing under 10 kilograms in life. And here's the thing. Remember how I mentioned the mammals of Kruger National Park way back at the beginning? If we compared giant dinos hatching out of very small eggs to a mammal, like an African elephant, we see much greater size changes in dinosaurs from newborns to adults than we see in most mammals.
Does that make sense? When an elephant is born, it's really big. Like a newborn elephant is pretty gigantic. You know, it weighs more than you do, chat. Maybe not collectively, but individually. Like a baby elephant when it is first born. Holy cow. Is really big. They're just chasing some guinea fowl. Oh. But that's practically a newborn elephant there. They're big. They weigh like several hundred pounds when first born. A baby T-Rex when first born, even though an adult T-Rex is way bigger than an adult elephant, a baby T-Rex first hatched would be like this big. I could hold it in my hands here. It's not a very big animal. A baby T-Rex newly hatched is way smaller than a baby elephant newly born. So yeah. Does that make sense? So what does that mean?
Because of that, hatchlings and juveniles of some extra large dinosaurs couldn't have eaten the same things their parents did. And these dinos would have changed in size, shape, and diet a lot more throughout their lives than mammals do today, passing through more different niches along the way. Now, this didn't just affect Tyrannosaurus rex. The Hadrosaur Edmontosaurus got dramatically larger with age, and so did Camarasaurus, an herbivore that lived in the Jurassic period. Juvenile Camarasaurus also had proportionately shorter necks than grown-ups did, which could point to differences in lifestyle and behavior between the age groups.
There you go.
Bottom line, growing up is hard. Physics put huge constraints on baby dinosaurs, from T-Rex to Camarasaurus to Edmontosaurus. So as some of these little newborns matured and new dietary options became available, they changed proportions and took on different niches. And by recognizing this, by thinking about these dinosaurs as living animals that actually grew up, we may have finally solved the mystery of the missing medium-sized dinosaurs.
Very cool. Here, let me give you a link to this video. Right here. And I do have a 3D printed Camarasaurus skull Tommy Plodicus, but it's not yet here in my new office. It's still back at my old apartment, I think. Yeah, I haven't brought it over yet. Yeah. And here is that article that we were looking at. First of its kind Tyrannosaur fossil reveals what younglings ate. Here, ultra-rare stomach contents of a young Tyrannosaur, in this case Gorgosaurus. Gorgosaurus is the name of the animal in whose stomach contents we found Citypus, a little Oviraptorosaur. I'm not part of this team, but this is the paleontological we here. yeah, there's a link for that in the chat. Check it out. Really, really interesting stuff. And I will be talking more about this with Balint later on this week. I need to actually text Balint about this. Is he on right now? No, he's not live right now. Well, oh, that's funny. Shoot. Who's this dingus right here? I wonder. Anyway, yeah. Balint and I hopefully are going to do another crossover stream this week. I actually need to contact him about that. But we'll be talking about this paper and another really interesting paper, kind of contrasting the difference between dinosaurs and mammals. And then we'll talk about 2 genetics papers that Balint has selected also. That's going to be a ton of fun, so more discussion of this topic then. Very excited about that. Yeah. And Dan the BC Man says you did not rent a U-Haul semi-truck to move in one big sweep. I wouldn't have needed a semi-truck, no. Does U-Haul have semi-trucks? I don't think so. They do have smaller moving trucks. Some of which have non-avian dinosaurs on them, like this Eubrontes here. Good stuff. Yeah. I did not rent one of these. I moved entirely through the use of my Prius and then my grandpa's truck too, which my dad brought over to help move the bookcases behind me. The very corner of which you can see right there. Gonna have some more cameras set up in the future as this space continues to develop here. Yeah, yeah. Anyway. With that being said, we're going to be discussing more of this topic later with Balint later this week. I hope maybe as soon as tomorrow night. Go to text Balint about that. But for right now, it is time to wrap up this broadcast. So let's throw up a theropod dinosaur there to run our credits over. And let's see who is live on Twitch right now, whom we can raid into. Let's see here. We have got Astro Canuck is on. Let's go see what he's up to. Or Yogurt Garrel. Yogurt Garrel, what is she doing right now? Let's go right into Yogurt Garrel. She's playing some Tetris. I was honored to meet Yogurt Garrel in person at TwitchCon back in October. And we'll see what she's doing. Anyway, she's a huge supporter of the science community here on Twitch and a really cool person.
My message up front. Try not to go extinct.
And Flowers of Salt, thank you for the follow. I hope to see you tomorrow for another exciting Paleontologizing live stream. There will be new stuff in the background tomorrow. I'm excited about that. And it's going to be a good time. Anyway, thank you to everybody whose name showed up here in the credits. Raiders and followers. Subscribers and cheerers. Moderators, thank you for keeping this train on its rails, as it were. And even you lurkers who don't necessarily show up in the credits, but I appreciate you. Let's go right into Yogurt Garrel. I'll see everybody tomorrow for some more fossil news discussion, Q&A, paleontology outreach. Thank you, everybody, for doing what you do. I'll see you next time. Take care.